that I think people throw at us the most, or at least for me, I'll speak for myself. That's the one that just the most frustrating. But I'll pass it on to my colleague over there.
I mean, Josie, I was going to sort of branch off in the a very similar direction with the idea that a lot of conservative commentators at least like to propel that being trans is a mental illness. And it's just like, first of all, you're not a doctor, so just stop. And second of all, no, we are who we say we are. Dysphoria has been a diagnosable thing for a extremely long time. So I mean, they're using their platform the majority of the time just to manipulate their audience based on ignorance, and it works. But yeah, it being like just saying that we are men when we're not, just because we're mentally ill or whatever, is one of the things that sticks out the most for me.
So on the gender dysphoria, like I'm glad that there's something, but I don't know if it's, I don't know if that's where it belongs. But anyway, that's like a differs between people. But what I was going to say is like Tumblr is older than the amount of time that gender dysphoria has been in the DSM, but there have been trans people way before that, and it just because it's in the DSM-5 does not make it like a mental illness, I guess, is what I was trying to get at.
Absolutely. And I think when people throw around like the mental illness, it's like when did mental illness anyways become a gotcha, right? It's like, oh, but you're neurodivergent, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like the one thing that it's like, oh, if it's queer or if it's trans, that's the mental illness. That's the one that we shame, right? And it's just so frustrating because first it's not a mental illness, but then secondly, you're just like trying to shame people for their like things they can't change about themselves. Like even if it was, right? Like that would be really screwed up, right? You'd want to help people, but it's like they use it as a gotcha, but then they also use it in the most terrible way possible.
It also
It's because
goes
they
to
have no other argument
Yeah.
other than, haha, you're different. And that's just like, okay, and
It even
is there
goes to like
anything
the
else?
kind
Or
of deep-rooted stigmatization of mental health in at least our contemporary society, that you're not going to tell someone who's like, oh, well, I have like BPD, I'm going to therapy for it, I'm taking medication, I manage it, and someone saying, no, you don't, you're just eccentric. Like it's you don't do that unless you're a piece of shit. But we
Yeah.
also don't approach mental health in any kinds of meaningful ways, at least in our current country. So yeah, there's a lot of age-old cultural norms about mental health, and I think it being on the DSM-5 is, like Amber says, appropriate, but at the same time, probably shouldn't be there, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like it's not there. It's not
Right.
it's not a mental illness. It's not a disorder. We have gender dysphoria, which
Hmm.
is diagnosable, and that is an incongruence and like a discomfort, right? With the incongruence in your gender identity versus your, sex that you were assigned at birth, right? I have it. I'll say it. Like I have gender dysphoria pretty severely.
whoa,
That's why I go
that's
through
pretty
the
bold to
entire
admit.
I know, right? Oh my gosh, right? But no, but like I have gender dysphoria and it's diagnosed that way. And it allows me to go through the medical system to receive my hormones, my surgeries, and all of those things, right? That is so like when people try to say, oh, these people are just getting these surgeries, it's like, you're the one saying that we're supposed to be looking at the DSM-5 and all of this stuff. So when we find the treatments for things such as gender dysphoria, like then it's bad again, right? It's like, so what is it, right? And I think that's where like the cognitive dissonance fits in, right? It's like, oh, it is this thing, but okay, great. So
It's an
HRT,
excuse.
hormone, gender affirming care. Yeah, go ahead.
It's an excuse for them to not investigate the concept of gender like cognitively. It's an easy way for them to dismiss like who you are in a way that makes sense to their brain but doesn't actually make sense.
I mean, yeah, and I talked about it in one of the YouTube video I made a couple months ago, where it's just like, just because you don't understand something does not give you the excuse to invalidate it. It's like those two things could not be further apart. If anything, if you don't understand something, ask someone, learn about it. It can do no harm, I promise.
Watch YouTube videos by people who are in that group.
Exactly.
So here, let me let me expand on a point that I think both of you brought up with respect to dysphoria, because I think there's a very common point of confusion for people who are like trying to learn about trans issues. They sometimes get like roped into thinking that like you have to be dysphoria stricken to be a trans person. Can you kind of elaborate on why that's not necessarily the case?
Josie, you can take this one from the start if you want.
Oh yeah, sure. So just to clarify, so your question is like the distinction between somebody with dysphoria that is trans and someone without dysphoria is that is trans.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes, you can absolutely be trans and not have gender dysphoria, because somebody could have deep euphoria from being able to live the identities that they choose. And I think, this is getting a little bit of Josie theory, okay, but this is something that I'm starting to come to terms with as somebody who came out as a trans woman at 34 years old, which is a lot older than most trans people, because most trans people are younger because of the acceptance in society, right? When I was a 90s kid, right, during the age of Jerry Springer and Maury Povich and Ace Ventura and all of the shaming and everything. So there was a lot of internalized transphobia, right? And I think a lot of us elder trans people who come out at a later time in our lives have a lot of internalized transphobia, right? Entire society was just like beating down on trans people the whole time. So we're just like, we can't be trans, we can't be trans, we can't be trans. And I think that a lot of that dysphoria comes from like, oh my gosh, I feel pain now from being this person I was forced to be for so long. This is complete Josie theory, right? Like this is coming out of my brain, where it's just like, I sense a lot of gender dysphoria with older trans folks than I do with younger trans folks. But that isn't what the goal for the younger folk, in my opinion, is to live proudly and being who they want to be. So that is powerful, right? You get proud, you're euphoric about your identity, right? And that's where you start off of like, you're just happy with life and you're just like full of vigor, right? Like you're young, you got optimism, you're just beaming, right? And I love that about the youth, right? But I think when you're older, you're just doing it to survive. And because we're at a point where it's just like, oh my gosh, I got to do this or it's over, right? And for me, it was that choice when I came out personally. Go ahead.
At least for me, I am one of the younger trans people that you're talking about. I'm turning 20 at the end of the month. But a lot of my gender dysphoria, it manifests itself in little physical things, but a lot of it mentally. I grew up playing sports, so I was always playing alongside men and stuff. So especially recognizing it looking back, a lot of my mental health issues stemmed from me suppressing who I really was to try and be something I wasn't. And that got really bad my senior year of high school. When my little brain wasn't very lefty politics yet, and I was gonna enlist in the Marines, which there's a super unhealthy environment, and thankfully COVID saved me from all that and allowed me to take a step back and recognize it's like I'm not being who I actually am. But as Josie was saying, it's like you can gain a sense of euphoria from being who you really are, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily replacing dysphoria. It's because euphoria and dysphoria are not necessarily polar opposites.
Right.
And
absolutely.
One can exist without the other. And that's what sort of happens all the time. And that's what gets overlooked when people try to make being trans a lot more of a simple conversation than it actually is.
Absolutely. I will say I was one of those people that didn't have something blocking me. I went into the Navy for 6 years. One of the reasons I went into the Navy was because I wanted to be tough, right? I wanted to be one of the boys, and it was
that sounds familiar.
one of those things. right? And then I put myself into basically a hornet's nest of trauma and pain because it's the military, but then you're like not understanding why you don't fit in with the boys. And you're just like, why is this not working? I'm like super strong and buff. I'm working out every day. Like it was just like there's no magic solution. See, I have no idea how to be a guy. So I just like did things that guys did normally. Like, I'm gonna go work out.
I found myself shadowing other people all the time. It's like I wasn't doing my own thing. I was just copying what everyone else was doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I know we started the conversation with like the myths and the attacks on trans people. I don't know if you want to wrap it back to something that we've already said, or did we?
If you want to keep riffing, you can keep riffing. You definitely answered the dysphoria question.
Taking over a little bit.
No, it's fine. I think it's great. I will bring it back since I guess I brought it back by mistaken, or I'm trying to like move things. But like one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I was talking to my partner right before I came on, as I was trying to cool off after traveling all day. We were talking about how we came onto this discussion talking about what ignited it with the manifesto that happened, and like the dogpiling that has happened to trans people, and then we have the current recent news of Keffels getting swatted and almost, killed, right? Like, I mean, let's just be honest, a gun was pointed at her body, right? We don't even do that in the military, right? You don't point at your gun at something unless you want to destroy it. But police, whatever, fling that sucker around as much as you want.
Tomato. They're close.
I don't know what that's about.
One and the same.
Yeah, right. And I think that one of the things that I've been harping on as a trans content creator and a trans public figure is the fact that we have to start protecting ourselves online. And we have to do it in more aggressive ways. One of the things that I have started doing is I've actually now blocked 25,000 people on Twitter. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I'm serious.
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, I know,
That's
right?
a lot of
and
work.
I want to teach how I did this, right? Because it took about, and I also am exporting the list. So the list is going to be public for anybody who wants it. So they can go and they can put it in their ban list. And there's a way that you can do it with the program. Yes. And it all started because of Destiny, right? I remember when there was a moment, because I've only went against Destiny 3 times, right? 3 times in my entire Twitch career, right? Very short Twitch career, like a year and a half now, right? A little over a year and a half. And that has turned into this entire community that has like Josie derangement syndrome, right? And it's like this constant little bitter battering of like, you put something on social media and you have some idiot saying something dumb and like it's kind of inconsequential, but it's just so much all the time that it's so annoying, and it's all coming from one place. So what I essentially started doing is I would go to a post, and I'm public about it because this is important information. I started about 7-8 months ago. I guess it was in March, actually. I got an app called Block Party. It's an app that you can do a monthly subscription for, where you actually put the tweet in it, but you can block all the people who like it. Right.
Ooh.
So I basically shadow banned his entire community. Right. So basically what I do is whenever he posted a transphobic tweet or something that was against a trans person or anything that was like directed and being bad, over time, I was able to ban about 12,000 folks from that community. And then I hopped over the Keffels side, and then I started seeing the really big comments that people were talking about Keffels. And then I started blocking all of those people who are liking those tweets. And eventually what I do is I block, and then I block the person who's the source, rather than going for the source, because you're just cutting the head off the snake, right? That's not, you have to burn it with fire, right? Like that's what you have to do. And now I have started actually going to like people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other large, huge transphobic figures, and just shadow blocking all of the people that like those tweets all the time. So I'm up to 25,000 people. My Twitter experience has never been better. It's been so cleansing. I feel like I got Twitter back. I feel like I can actually use it like a normal user, and I don't have to worry about the random dread. And if it is, it's just one person, right? And then all of a sudden they say one random thing and they have no likes or anything on it, so it doesn't even look like they can even get any traction. So people just don't even post against me because they have no ability for an audience to see them, because I block the transphobic audience that gives them fuel, and it makes them go another direction because they're clout chasers.
I definitely need that because I've fallen into the trap of engaging and making the problem worse, which is really not what I should be doing, but I take too much pleasure in it. Which definitely does over time affect my mental health. So I do need to just be better at blocking and moving on.
So this is the best part, right? Is I haven't blocked Destiny, right? And now I can actually go and comment on Destiny's like random shit sometimes, and all of his fans can't see what I'm saying. So all of a sudden, like the few people that are engaging are people who are like mild with him.
That's pretty genius.
So it's like so it's like all of a sudden like their community doesn't understand like what is going on, but the people who could be swayed, the people in the middle, only see me and not the stupid riffraff that come in and talk. It's worth it because it gives
Holy
you
shit, Josie found a way to get to the centrists.
Yeah, it's working slowly but surely. Like it is working.
Wow, I didn't even think like something like that was technically possible. That's actually pretty savvy, especially because like a lot of that audience tends to be kind of like roped in by debate perversion and not necessarily like overt hatred of marginalized people. So some of them might actually be worth like or I guess redeemable. That's
I have redeemed people
for it.
and the way that I do it is because you can still see past the block. And so what you'll do is you'll see just a normal thread going on, and you'll just see this random block person. I'm like, what are they saying? And I'm like, oh, they're not blocked anymore. Right now, if they like another transphobic tweet, they'll probably get locked later. But you know what I mean? Like sometimes I do redeem them randomly. I'm like, oh, this person's not so bad. Right. And then I'll just like unblock them and just move on.
See, and I'm the opposite way. I haven't blocked that many people. I think I'm only at like 200 and something. But it's like once you're blocked, you don't get a second chance. You sort of lost your chance in my book. I'm a little bit better on Twitch, but on Twitter, I have very little forgiveness.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is the battleground these days. Trump basically weaponized that since he ran for president, and now here we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so absolutely. I guess that makes sense that like you really have to use something like that app, and your blocking strategy is like a big component of like your internet security. Because Graham was saying like right before you hopped on, Josie, that like he and Levelhead, another streamer in our ecosystem, are gonna like sit down and kind of work on content creator like information and internet security just after what happened to Keffels. Like it's kind of a necessity, clearly, because it feels like there's really no safe way to go about being a content creator without taking some precautions, especially if you're, saying things that will rile up that section of the internet. So
yeah.
I would never.
I should ask Block Party for a sponsorship because I'm about to get them a ton of business because it's only like it's a subscription service. It's like a little over, I think it's like $12 something. And if you have like a list like I have, you literally only need to use like a month to just like go and just like block chunks of 5,000 at a time because they're already all just there on that list. So and then you just do it for 1 month and then you're done for a while. And if you like that type of work, if you like it, then keep doing it. It's the best thing. I've already been doing it for the executive director at the TT.
I'll be interested to see if it actually blocks any of my moots because I'm also part of sports Twitter, which I only occasionally engage in because every once in a while I'll make a comment under the wrong post and then I'll get called all sorts of slurs. So I'm very, very curious to see who it'll block.
Oh, that's a fun part too. I've done that where I'm like, who got blocked? I was like, oh,
yeah.
Chancel.
It's I'm just here to like sports. Like, just leave me alone.
Well, I mean, speaking of Maya, like that's a really good segue to talk about like the trans athlete discussion, because that is another like culture war flashpoint that's been unnecessarily created in just about every circumstance. So really, Maya, I think you could probably like lead this off since like you are a trans athlete. So like, what's that like?
I'm a collegiate trans athlete. And
Nice.
sorry to break the mold, conservatives, I'm not the best player on my team. So I mean,
Surprise.
argument ruined right there. But it's like I've
Yeah.
been on HRT for it's almost 9 months now.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And it's like I don't have. It's like other than being tall, I'm 6'2". I don't have any sort of biological advantage. I did play men's volleyball in high school, but I'm not any better than each individual person on the team. So it's like usually the main argument is that there are like excess levels of estrogen, or not estrogen, of testosterone in trans athletes. And I think I was already down to cis women levels of testosterone in like my first 4 months of being on HRT.
Oh wow, that's great. Good
So,
for you. Took me
Yeah,
a
it's
long
like
time to get
usually if
there.
you've got a good endo, like you can knock that shit out like right away.
Lucky.
Yeah, no,
It's not like
I love my.
testosterone levels correlate with buffness anyway.
It
No,
does.
it's like I'm a twig.
Does it?
Like
Yeah. As far
it
as like,
can,
yeah,
but
like pound
not
for pound.
always. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Not
Um,
always, right? Like testosterone helps you build muscle, and it also reduces the fat, your fat percentage in your muscles.
Yeah, lean
So,
muscle
like
mass
like
and
you
T
look at it
levels.
like yeah, like a woman's leg, or a femme-bodied person's leg, right? There versus a masculine bodied person's
Yeah.
leg. Like you could tell the difference between those two legs,
Yeah.
right? One's full of muscle and fat, right?
I mean, and see, that's where I differ because I have legs built like a horse because I danced for 10 years and then I played volleyball. So I just have like these giant legs and then very
it
thin upper
changes.
body.
I
It
haven't
changes,
danced.
I promise.
I haven't danced in like 8 years, but I still have like definition in my calves, even though I don't
Yeah.
do any work with my legs anymore. Like I still have that definition from dancing, from pointing those
Yeah.
fucking toes
Oh,
so
yeah.
straight
Oh
all
my
the
gosh,
time.
I miss ballet so much. But it's like I've got strong legs, but that doesn't. It's like in volleyball, that's only like one half of the equation. Like your upper body
yeah.
doesn't have to be insanely strong, but it's like cool. I can jump high. Now what?
Yeah.
And it's like I've gotten. I'm not, and I wouldn't even say like I'm amazing at volleyball, but it's like I've gotten better at it by like just doing it and just playing the
That's
game,
cool.
and that's what you have to do. And it's like me being on the team is not sort of any sort of trump card for the other team or for our team.
I forgive me if I pry too much, but how are your teammates? Are they all?
Oh,
pretty
my
chill?
teammates are. Thankfully, I live in LA, so
Okay.
people are at the bare minimum Libby progressive, but my entire team is like super accepting.
What's going on?
We might have
Is
the
that
wrong
Peridot?
mic.
Yeah, I forcefully muted that.
You good?
What's
You look like you
happening?
just saw God.
I know, like yeah,
Like so
Peridot.
happy,
Whoa.
but so confused
Shocked.
and dazed.
Hang on.
Shocked. That's the word
Okay,
I was trying
there's
to
an
find.
unmute. All right. Okay, I think he's muted on his end.
Okay.
Here,
Yeah,
I'll-
I thought I was aware of that. Did y'all hear
Why-
something weird?
yeah, there's
You're not
feedback
using
into
the
your
right
mic.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think you're.
I think it's
you're
going
not
I'm
through
using
not
the
the
using
right
the
mic.
right mic.
You're not using the right mic.
Oh,
All right, here.
It's a
well,
giant
you,
shit show.
You got
Yeah.
that nice
Leftist
mic. It
audio.
sounds like a webcam mic. Yeah.
That's much better.
That's
yes.
better.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Now
it
we can hear
reset-
that.
It reset
that
the
sweet
whole
voice.
thing. Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
How are we doing tonight?
All right, hang on. Let
Doing
me
well.
Living the
Wait.
dream.
sneak you in here. I guess like to expand on the trans athlete component, right? Because people start getting like super hyper focused on like testosterone levels, bone density. Like they're starting to invoke a lot of the like biological essentialist argumentation. What
Mhm.
what do you normally say when that comes up?
I mean, it depends on how I'm feeling that day. Half the time I'm just like, shut the fuck up, you don't know what you're talking about. because you're talking at me more than you're talking with me, which isn't really going to get us anywhere. But just sort of going off that, they usually like to pull the like one or two examples of a trans athlete like performing at like an exceptional level and winning on a higher stage, but it's like the majority of trans athletes are sort of like middle ground, and we just sort of do our thing. Because I mean, like everyone else, we're athletes. We're not gonna be the greatest of all time just because we were born into a different body.
So wait, you didn't go into months, years of hormone replacement, puberty blockers, therapy, doctor's appointments, so that you could have a chance at winning possibly a medal once?
I mean, that was my initial goal, and then I sort of pivoted away from that.
Okay.
And it's like, yes, I can jump 10 feet in the air, but I don't think that really distracts from my argument very much.
Okay.
I have a kind of a weird question that popped into my head. Do you ever feel pressure to not outperform the people you're playing with because you don't want that shit?
Honestly, not really, because even when I am playing at my best, I'm not the best player on the team because other people have been playing for longer.
But like, would you feel that pressure?
Would I feel that pressure? Probably not. Just because I know at the end of the day, it's like, even if we are doing well, I've got the support of the coaching staff and my teammates. So we're all going to go into it together. And I've had talks with a lot of them, just like giving them the heads up where it's like, hey, I'm sorry ahead of time, but I also know at the end of the day, you have my back. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to a like an actual trans athlete in a while, so I really appreciate it. I don't know if it was said before I came on, so I actually run the U.S. Transgender Survey for the National Center for Transgender Equality, and one of the things that we were able to expand in the survey, first we dropped the age from 18 to 16 years old, and we also added sections on sports and access to locker rooms, as well as how the legislation against trans athletes is affecting the mental health of people who want to play sports. And so I really appreciate your point of view on it, because I read studies on this all the time, right? And my answer when people say things about athletics and performance, it's like I say, well, the science says that when a person goes through hormone transition, that all the advantages go away when you compare the studies for like size difference as well as weight difference as well, because a lot of those studies are written by average height of like all like cis girls versus all trans girls. So it's like not accurate when you need to like if you're going to train and try to have a comparison between a 6 foot trans girl, you need to also do that with a 6 foot cis girl, and then you'll notice that all of those advantages vanish. And there's also a recent study, really quick, is that they just found out that race has more to play with bone density than gender does. I thought that was really interesting. Like, for example, a Black woman has higher bone density than a white cis man. And so it's like one of those things where there's more science and actual better science, because a lot of the science that they use on bone density and all this stuff is just outdated science, and that needs to be retested, because that's what you do in science, right? You retest and you retest and you retest to make sure that the conclusions that you're coming up with are correct. And now they're starting to see that the bone density studies have been wildly inaccurate because of those type of things. And also, and you can also say that bone density actually has nothing to really do with the leverage or power of anything, because because muscle and length is the thing that actually, like, physics, right? It's a lever. It's not how, like, a lever that is like titanium and a lever that is like made of wood still do the things of a lever. So it doesn't make sense that you would like use that comparison. So yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be done, and I really appreciate the personal perspective because I get the scientific one so much.
Yes. Yeah, and you were talking about comparing like a 6-foot trans girl to a 6-foot cis girl, and I mean, it's a very individual study, but I mean, there's a perfect example of that on my team. One of my teammates is also 6'2". We play the same exact position, we get the same reps. She's just better. And it's just like, I'm okay with that. We're obviously always competing for the spot because that's sports. But it's like, we talk about that shit all the time. It's like, some people are just inherently better, and it has fucking nothing to do with your gender or your assigned sex at birth.
Nothing to do with it. Yeah, exactly. So really, you know, that's how you bust the myths, right? Is really just say, hey, look, science doesn't prove you right. And honestly, I'm a person that says the league should be they need to be trans inclusive, but the league needs to be able to choose a little bit on what they scientifically see within their sport, to be able to say, okay, maybe for a contact like, you know, UFC, maybe it is 2 years hormones, right? Versus like 1 year for swimming, right? Like it's a completely different thing, right? And I think that the leagues can split those hairs.
Amber, go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know, like a part of me just wants to make sports non-gendered because it's pretty archaic in the first place, but like that would just fix all of these issues. But at the same time, like, I don't know.
That's a really interesting
I
question,
agree to
Josie.
a certain extent.
The the international panels and stuff for the Olympics and stuff like that. I mean, these are international panels too. So, like, how do you think that should be adjudicated? Like, how, you know, would it be like, as you are kind of like what you were talking about in the UFC, you have like the UFC, which is a global company, but then they have to pass states. But every state is kind of different, right? They have their sports commissioners, and you have to go through their. So would the restrictions or the nuance kind of be drafted by the international level? What do you think about that?
Go ahead. It looks like you want to say something.
I was just gonna say, do you want people regulating that though? Is the question. Do you want sports to have a gatekeep? I guess that was where I was trying to get at with like the just make it
I hear what you're saying,
but like
yeah, should there be? Yeah, that's a greater question too.
It's a really weird thing to try and address, and especially with what was seen after Leah Thomas won the NCAA title. Was it the like International Swimming Committee or whatever it is, was now making the restriction that if you are trans, you cannot compete unless you started hormone therapy at age 12.
Yeah.
Which is literally not possible.
Right.
So they just not so subtly just outright ban trans people from competing.
Right. And I think this is great because, like, you know, as a you know, legislator type of person, you have to set a ground floor, right? Like it's like a speed limit, right? Like it's like you can't go that fast, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to be able to say it has to be inclusive in setting that standard, right? And let's say, you know, if you say for contact, team sport, individual level, like you would have the different categories of what those could be. Like you could say like boxing can have a maximum of 2.5 years, right? And that could be the max, right? Like that's the standard of like the cap, right? But the leagues themselves should be able to move backwards from that to make it less restrictive, right? So this is the most restrictive you can be, but you can regulate it down to be less restrictive for a given sport. Like I you know, the concept of eliminating gendered sports entirely, right? A lot of people say that. Now, I would like to meet you in the middle of that because I don't believe it should be that way for every sport. Archery, rifle, like you know, sharpshooting,
chess.
You know,
that's why I hesitated because
is chess really split by
like
gender?
wrestling or something like that is going to be kind of. I don't know the research behind like gender differences in something like wrestling, but I assume men would.
Wrestling is interesting because I mean, that's measured on weight classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be like, 6'1" and be the same weight as someone who's like, 5'6", and you guys are going up against each other. And for things like wrestling and jiu-jitsu, it doesn't really matter because it's all about leverage. So I don't
something
think,
where it would matter, some
yeah.
sport, some
Yeah.
strength sport.
Well, like Josie brought up contact sports, UFC, boxing, that's going to be a little harder to judge because, someone's frame is going to play a lot in like, how hard they can hit. But again, it's mixed martial arts. So it goes back to the, Becca's almost a foot shorter than me, and she's whooped my ass in jiu-jitsu plenty of times. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what and I think this is why the banning all gender categories from sports can be more harmful to the argument of like inclusion of trans women in sports in particular, is because it just ignores the fact that it makes the trans movement think that there's no difference between a body with testosterone and a body on estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
like the thing about it is, and it's science, right? They bring up the studies all the time, like men perform and carry or can lift more than fem body. Like that's the way they used to do the studies, right? They would compare like a cis guy versus a cis girl, and then see like and like on average, testosterone increases muscle development, muscle retention. It helps you grow faster. There is the fat mass ratio, like I said before. All of those things exist, and really, it's trans people who are like, "Hey, science, biology," right? We're the ones that actually are saying that the loudest because our bodies actually go through that transition. It's like I used to be an amateur bodybuilder in the Navy. Like I was like in the gym all the time. I wasn't kidding. I went onto a deployment weighing 127 pounds, came out weighing 170. All right. There's a transition photo that I don't even believe sometimes. Where it's just like, what? Who is that person? Because it can't be me. But like I understood what my body was at peak masculine body fitness, and I also climb mountains and do like big mountain trips in the Sierras. So I'm also fairly fit as a femme-bodied person, and I can tell you there's a huge difference between the two, especially when it comes to like bouldering and actually like doing that type of stuff. And it's all about my technique now. Now I'm probably a better climber generally now because I use my lower body more than relying on my upper body strength that I had before. So technically, like technical climbing, I'm actually better now. But before I was just throwing myself on the rocks and pulling myself up with no problem. It's actually kind of comical to think me trying to do that now. I'm just like, no, I just like fall over. I feel like, nope, I'm done. So when we talk about biological distinctions, I think we need to start talking more about the hormone profile of the human versus the sex assigned at birth, because we like you could take my blood, you could take most trans women on HRT's blood, and you will never tell the difference between a vial of cis woman blood and trans woman blood. You can't tell the difference. It's the same hormone profiles. So yeah.
And if Dr. Neuro were here, he would be able to talk about brain scans and how it would be indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
it's that old meme of we're all skeletons when we're dead anyways. So like it's just
and
but
that's
like
the
we're
thing.
alive.
And that's a thing that's sort of become indistinguishable too, because I'm sure Josie has some experience with this, and there's been so many studies done where it's like our bone structure changes when we start HRT, like fundamentally. Like we don't just like, okay, now I have boobs. Like that's not the only thing that goes into it. There's so much more that happens when the process of HRT starts that is overlooked just because it's more nuanced than a lot of people want to accept.
Exactly. And it goes back to that the original myth that trans women are men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they do not even want to grant us the argument that the hormones that we're taking actually help us in the process of being accepted for ourselves and other people as the gender that we say are. It's not mandatory, it's not necessary. Self ID should be the way that it is, but when transphobes especially say this is the thing, well, we have the ability to say no, that's not true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me turn it to either Graham or Greg, because I know like I've kind of monopolized a little bit, and then we can loop in Marquise after that. But have there been any like questions kind of burning a hole in your brains, respectively?
Well, I mean, I think we should at some point probably circle back to the recent happenings with Keffels.
Sure.
This is now kind of transcended from a kind of niche internet story to a local story to a national to an international story. So, I mean, reactions, initial thoughts, ways to move forward, broader space, kind of introspection. Really, any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I will just say it. I'll just say it. What Keffels went through is actually my nightmare. The whole scenario. I was just playing it back before I came on. Like the whole idea of what happened, and maybe I should just and before you get initial thoughts, I would like to go over how I saw it as far as a thing, or but maybe we should go around first before I do that. But my initial reaction is, oh my god, this is my nightmare. I want to just give her a hug and just be like, we're here, right? And and it was my first reaction, and I have the pleasure of having Keffels as a friend. And when Keffels sent me the message saying, "Hey, this happened," I was just like, I was so floored, right? So floored, right? And having that information and being like, I am not going to tell anybody about it because it's not my story to share. But it was just like, right? Like it was in my head the whole day. I could not get to work. Like it completely just blew my focus for the whole day because it was just like, this is the nightmare, right? And there's many reasons on why I think Keffels is probably going to be a future millionaire, because this London, Ontario is going to suffer greatly because of this. And we'll go through the list of events on what happened, if you'd like to do a recap, but I'll let initial reactions first.
At least for me, since coming out publicly on the internet as trans, and I'm not like the most prominent trans content creator. I've only been at this for like 4 months. And I've talked about this a little bit on my streams and on other people's streams, but it is very rare to go a full 24 hours for me without receiving at least one death threat. And it takes just the wrong person to find your address and for you to get murked because cops fucking suck. And I talked a little bit about it before. I don't remember if it was before we actually started talking about stuff. I live in LA, and people like to joke around that it's like this communist sanctuary or whatever, but it's like, at the end of the day, the LAPD has about $12 billion worth of funding, and they're not afraid to just straight up murder people. And there have been many instances in the past where it's like trans people don't get identified correctly and they get shot over it. So as Josie was saying, when I got the message from Keffels as well, I was terrified, because that is something that it's like, you always know it could be a possibility, but the idea of it actually happening is horrifying.
Yeah, Graham, what were your thoughts?
Well, I didn't want to jump in at any point. Where to start from here? I mean, Josie, you made an interesting point about this is probably going to net a lot of money from the civil lawsuit, or I don't know if this will move to punitive damages or not, but so how strong, at least in the legal case, for discrimination based on gender identity are we looking at for something like this? I know it's Canada, it's different legal system, different kind of protections, but I mean, what are your thoughts on like her legal case right now?
Oh, she's gonna win something. It's gonna win damages for sure. There's an entire evidence trail. The police was warned in March that Keffels was doxxed and could be a threat in this way. That was ignored. They didn't do the wellness check on her mother before they came in, and before that, they used a poorly grammatical email that stated, "Hi, I'm Claire," and then proceeded to sign off as the dead name, right? Which, if you know anything about trans people at all, like anything, we don't do that, right? We don't say, "Hi, I'm this person. By the way, I'm signing off as another person." That's just confusing.
Just hearing my dead name gives me anxiety, let alone I wouldn't end an email with it. Like,
right.
And in what scenario, and like sort of what you're talking about, sort of after the fact, was they booked Keffels under a person who literally doesn't exist anymore. Because she changed her she changed her name 11 years ago.
Yeah, it's 10 years ago legally, including her last name. And it was a situation where, and that's where it goes, right? They apparently searched her apartment for like 8 hours, which is just way too much. And I think one of the most egregious things outside of being woken up in the middle of the night with a rifle in your face is the fact that she was asked trans 101. Right. And that's the thing that gives me the most trauma, right? That's where I think that's where all the damages are. It's like she's literally being the victim of a hate crime that is being forwarded by the police, the system, right? The government. And then while they're committing this crime upon her person in an inhumane way of dead naming, which is already against the Canada law, you can't do that, and also misgendering, and then immediately after all of the like, what is dead name? What is being trans? Like, what is this? And in the back, being interrogated by your captors. Right, of like, oh, by the way, can you now defend your trans identity now that we did this because of your trans identity? And that I think is the thing. And then taking her computer, and then just the reaction of the police chief, right, of how immediately trying to dust it all up, coming back early from vacation, getting Keffel's stuff immediately when it came out. Like they're already trying to cover themselves, but guess what? They booked her under those names. And it's in the record. Like, they are so fucked. Like, and I'm glad they are. It's about time, and maybe this will send the shockwave that is necessary, because I know that as a person who deals with post-traumatic stress from the Navy and all of the things that I had to go through, the trauma of having your life threatened in that way, in a dehumanizing way, that stuff follows you for the rest of your life. And she deserves every penny that she gets, because she was abused by the system. And I hope that they're screwed. They broke so many laws against human rights. They're so screwed. I cannot wait to see what happens.
I guess, and I'm sorry if you want to add anything to that as well. I just kind of have some 2 questions that I want to spin off of that.
Yeah, no, go ahead, go for it.
Oh, okay. So first is, do either of you see this as setting some form of legal precedent moving forward for that we can use to like further entrench protections? Not only for things like swatting, but for protections for trans people. And I guess we'll answer that one first, and then we can go to the next question that I have. I'll write it down so I don't forget.
I really want to say yes. Right. Every fiber of my being wants to say yes. But we live in the United States. And it was seen even in the past couple months, we are still not viewed as people by either major political party, and we are merely used as posturing pieces to win votes, either by saying that we're not who we say we are, or we support trans people, but we're not actually going to pass any laws to protect them. So it may in other places like in Canada, because as Josie brought up, both dead naming and misgendering are classified as hate crimes in Canada. But for that spreading to the US, it has been covered on US news as far as I've been made aware. But I don't think, unfortunately, that it would set any sort of legal precedent here as the system exists now.
Yeah, I think that Canada seeing a lot of money get moved is going to be very effective. Like, oh gosh, this is a public embarrassment. Like they're publicly embarrassed, right? And this is a good thing. And I think that this is the type of, because we all knew this was happening, right? We we all know that this is how the police are going to treat us if this happens. I do believe that we're at a point where we actually are going to have new law. Like right now, I agree, America is really in trouble. Like you have Florida, Texas, and you have a lot of these different states across the country, 300 bills across the country that have been anti-trans, over 300, and it's just disturbing on how hateful this country has become towards trans people. However, because I'm a cynical optimist, I have to throw the optimism in there a little. I am actually going to be making a report in my local police precinct with a law enforcement officer. And it really lit a fire under my ass because I was like, oh, I got to do this myself. I got to find a way to protect myself. So I'm going through the steps to see how it was for me to be put on an anti-SWAT list or to put a flag per se on my address. And I'm going to document it, and I'm going to be like, hey, this is what you got to do. And this is what you got to say. And I'm bringing the evidence of my doxing, and I'm also bringing the evidence of all these articles on Keffels to like scare the police department. It's like, look at what they did. You don't want to be them.
They're getting sued.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to be them. And so I think like, but that's weird because like it's gonna help like people like myself who are like ready and prepared. But like the average trans person on the street, I don't know if that's gonna help them. Right. And so, but unless there's a lot of trans people who take this action, right, to say, hey, I'm going to be a target of a hate crime. Don't don't help perpetuate that hate crime, please. And just make that standard practice where police departments are going to have to start training on it. Could you imagine if like, let's say 10,000 trans people after this incident go to their local precincts across the country, right? And they all say, hey, I want to write a report that I want my address flagged because they're going to use you as a tool for hate, right? Maybe then police departments will be like, we need to talk to each other here because this is a thing that trans people are worried about. And by the way, this happened in Canada. We don't want to be them, right?
It almost sounds like a kind of catch-all write-up that could be shared around easily.
Yeah.
Might be a good move.
Yeah.
I mean, because Josie, the last thing U.S. citizens want to end up is looking like Canadians. That would be the worst possible thing. So if you can use that as leverage, that'll work.
Well, quick thing, I promise.
Okay.
I was just gonna say on the topic of cynical optimism, I know I've told the panelists this, but my governor I live in Utah, so my governor is Republican. Every fucking government official from the state is Republican. However, he met with some trans kids from Utah and afterwards put out a huge statement saying like, these are just kids. They just want to play sports. They just want to fit in. And when he made this announcement, he started crying. And like, I got some hopium that day. Like I was high off that hopium. And then,
and
the rest of the
remember
country.
seeing that. And I do remember seeing that. And my whole thing is, I think my bar to some degree might be too impossibly high, but I'm like, okay, this speech is good. Now pass legal shit to actually protect them, because to a certain degree, if you don't, it's performative. And that's what most politics is. And that's because that's how you get elected.
Yeah, the cynical optimism really hit the nail on the head, the way you described that. Like, like I get excited about things like that, but as soon as I catch myself getting excited, I'm like, no, like don't. this isn't gonna work out how your fantasy wants it to.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's the. I'm at a point, right? And so I'm telling myself I'm actually a founding member of the Trans Advisory Committee for the DNC. Yay me. So
Wow.
I
Go.
so yeah, it's the first meeting's next week. It's sad that it's taken this long.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say
Better
that.
late than never, I suppose.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I am at a point right now, and I used to be a Republican when I was young, right? And where if you're a Republican, you're just anti my existence. And that's kind of where I'm at, right? Because one thing I used to do a lot would be an apologist for like the regular Republican in the household because I'm from Texas, right? So I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, but the regular Republicans aren't like that.
They're
You
not
know,
hogs.
it's just the it's just the politicians. They just don't know what they're doing. It's just the politicians. But there is a point in my, like, I don't know if it happened in my life or it happened because I just got fed up. But I was like, no, you're complicit. You know now. Like, Donald Trump existed. You can't ignore that, right? Like, that is something that now at a point, it's like, it's almost judgment at this point.
You can't
And
go back from that. Like you can't
go
come back
from
from that mask off, like hog energy.
Can't come back
Yeah.
from where they're at right now.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just getting
exactly,
worse.
right? So it's like it's getting to that point where it's just like, okay, you're just against this existence, and I say this, and I'm usually not the aggressive person, right? I'm usually like, let's all unify and get the goal done, right? And I'm not like centrist or anything like that. I'm super lefty, right? But I definitely am at a point where the Republicans have been doing this to the Democrats for like 40, 50 years. We have been the party of evil demons, like people ever since Roe. We were baby killers. Ever since gay marriage, we were degenerates. Like, it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And they don't just say, oh, this is just the Democratic politicians and the Democrats, you know, in California that are just living in their houses. They're just awesome. They're okay. No, we live in rat infested streets in California with, you know, that's how they see us, right? We're gross even being in a liberal state, right? Just being run by a liberal government is like a
Especially
moral
being in
commendation.
California.
Yeah, right. Like, and I lived there for 16 years. Like, you know, there were members of my family who literally said, "We did wish you didn't go to California." I'm like, why? Because then you wouldn't be trans. I'm like, really? That's
an interesting
I literally
logic.
heard that conversation about not even like someone.
I mean,
being
I say
trans,
that
just
as a
coming back
joke.
and being more
Yeah.
like socially progressive.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I say that as a joke, where it's just like, don't go to college, kids, and then I'll post like a pre-transition picture of me and then a post-transition picture of me. But it's a joke. But there are unironically people who take this seriously.
They take it
3
really
weeks
seriously.
into gender studies.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
It's
you
okay.
know,
I got
would be
Carter
so
mad
fun.
the other day, Grim, because I posted him as a pre-transition
Oh
picture
yeah,
of
I
me.
did see that. Did he get mad?
No.
That's awesome.
No.
I bet he loved that.
I gotta go retweet that
Yeah,
right now.
can you
Sorry.
link this,
Yeah,
please?
yeah. Let me find that.
Yeah,
So-
that's hilarious.
I want to kind of circle back just a little bit, and then we can move on.
Sure.
All of us are kind of in the Twitch space, and we know that a lot of what Clara was going through, Keffels, was centered from a particular community that will remain nameless.
I've already named it though.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we
don't
no,
have to
no,
name it
are you calling
further,
it the
though.
KF stuff? No, in the KF stuff, no, we didn't name
Oh,
that.
Oh
I
no,
wasn't
we are
talking about
not.
KF. I
Please
was
don't
talking
bring up
about
KF
Kayla D.
stuff.
I'm not. I'm just saying. But
Yeah.
but it's funny
Yeah.
that there's so yes. Go ahead
Yeah.
and say what you're gonna say though.
Yeah, so we know like there is particular communities that shall remain nameless that a lot of this is fomenting from, but I feel like the kind of like fervent like focus that's coming out of these communities underscores a certain attitude and certain direction that the backslide of our current contemporary culture is taking. Where do you, from at least your experiences, like see what that looks like? Because your perspective is obviously going to be different from ours. So, how do you see it, and what are some? I guess what's the macro level view of that like for you?
So it's layers, right? Like
Right.
I think there's a lot of layers to it. I think that there's so many ways I can go at this question, because like I feel that there is a death row happening right now
Hmm.
where it's like we all need to be as bigoted as possible right now, because this is our only window, because that window is about to shut. Right. I feel like that's happening right now, where it's like shutting the gates of hell as the demons are trying to push through at the last moment to get their last hit. Right. And so I think that there's like a lot of fervor of people feeling like they're being censored, and so therefore they're going to be more outraged. um Although I think that public opinion is actually shifting overall. I think that like you said, the Utah governor meeting with trans kids, right? I helped with an event to get the Health and Human Services Secretary Becerra, the Secretary of Health, to meet with trans kids a few months ago. 5 families from across the country. I even hosted a family in my home, so they could more affordably stay here in the area, and to make sure that had that conversation. And can you believe that was the first time the federal administration has ever met with trans kids,
I can believe it.
ever in history, right? And
I mean,
and
it
it
hasn't
was
worked in
it's
their voting system yet, so why would they do it?
right. And so
Trans kids haven't
the
made the money yet, so they
yeah,
don't
Right,
that's
they
No
don't
true.
need
brokies.
them.
Yeah. But so I think that in like the motions of the gears that are like actually pushing things, I think that things are starting to move in our direction. However, that doesn't always translate into a better life for the person living in Georgia. Right. And so that's why I think it's like goes in layers, right? The online presence of a trans person's always going to be shit until they get Josie's list. um
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
please, I really need it.
I'll definitely, yeah, for sure, I will get it to you. But like that's what it's going to be, and we need to work really hard as a community to make transness as accepted as gay marriage was when gay marriage finally made it across the country, right? Where it's like, why are you talking about gay people like that? They're like, they like run that business over there. Like, why are you doing that, right? And it was that level of visibility that helped. But the issue is there's way more gay people than there are trans people. So there's going to be a point where we're going to get a lot of visibility, and then we're going to start to plateau, because the conservatives are just going to shut off the flow of information into their states, and it's going to
Florida.
make it really hard to be openly trans in those areas. So I'm worried about that plateau. But right now what we're seeing currently is a migration pattern of trans people leaving the states where they're not leaving, sorry, fleeing the states
Mhm.
that they currently live, and going and living in other places. So that sucks, because that ruins the visibility point, right? And the conservatives know that. They know that the less visible trans people there are in their communities, the less likely there's going to be people who are like, oh yeah, I can be trans here. It's a safe place to go and hold hands and walk around and do the things in this neighborhood. And so it's a scary thing, and that's why we need strong federal protections to make sure that it doesn't matter what the states say. But now we're losing those. We may lose gay marriage in the next year. So here comes that cynical optimism coming. But I think that this is the best illustration, and I'll pass it. So my mother gave me a call, and my mother is, Texan. I love her. She's great. She accepts me, all this great stuff, right? but she is still living in a conservative area that is married to a police officer. Okay, so let's just get that straight, right? Okay, so I was talking to my mom and I was like, hey mom, like this abortion stuff's really bad. And then as she was starting to be like, oh, well, and I didn't even let her get there, right? I was like, I didn't even let her be like, I just said, abortion stuff's pretty bad. I'm not even gonna let you have an argument. We're not talking about it, right? And then I go, but what I'm really worried about is they're gonna remove gay marriage. And she was like, why would they do that? I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would they do that? And she was just like, she literally said to me, she was like, Josie, that would devastate thousands of families across the United States.
That's what I said about abortion.
Yeah, right.
What percentage of the population is adult AFAB people? just look that up real quick.
52%. It's like 51%.
Yeah.
And so, but she basically doesn't see abortion that way, but she sees marriage that way.
Interesting.
And so she sees like the love of her gay friends between each other. And she's like, oh yeah, that's super legitimate. That's super great. That I like that. I like that couple. I like who they are, because the visibility of queerness made her change on that. Just like the visibility of transness with me made her change on that. Right. But now if they reverse the clock, she's just like, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. And so that's what I'm talking about, the plateau. We're going to see what happens. Right. The Republicans are going to try to fuck around and find out. And try to go after gay marriage. And I think they're going to get something like Kansas, which is a complete repudiation of their entire platform. And that's what I can hope, because I don't think my mom would be like, oh yeah, but the Republicans did it for a reason. Not on this one, maybe on abortion, but definitely not on gay marriage. And I think a lot of conservatives feel that way. So if that breaks, then maybe they will back off on trans people. But if that does break, trans people are so fucked. Like, it's like people are going to be living in bastions and not in states like Florida where they'll just like criminalize hormones and for transitional
and it just breaks the brains of chuds whenever they find out that someone like myself is both trans and gay. And then they learn about stuff like that, and they're like, "Wait, how does that work?" It's just like, "Well, I like other women."
Why'd you
like, one or the other brother pick one.
Why'd you even transition if you're just gonna go after the same people?
Oh, I'm sure.
Literally what my uncle said.
The argument that I love to laugh at is where it's like, well, you seem to be getting more attention from women now that you transitioned. Is that why you transition? I'm like, what? I think those 2 points are a lot less related than they might be in your small little brain.
Yeah, maybe that person would get attention from women if they shut up.
I think was that your dad you said that?
Oh, no. My dad is the type of lib who just doesn't care, but will be supportive.
Okay, yeah.
He's sort of that kind of lib, which I'll take over the religious preachers, because that I do also have in my family, and certain words along the lines of "we'll love them because we have to, but we will never accept them" were uttered after I came out. So it's like that's the type of shit I'm used to. No, my dad would never say shit like that.
That's good. That's really good. I'm just saying, like, I think that person that said that to you uncovered the incel like new strategy where the incels are just gonna transition into women so they can actually pick up girls.
Good for them. We'll welcome them with
good
open
for
arms.
them. Good for them.
We've
Come on
uncovered
in.
the secret. Nobody tell
Hey,
Andrew.
listen. If I wasn't a married woman,
hot.
Oh, thank you.
Remember. Oh my.
So that's almost like dark side of the force tier shit. Like, teach me the things that some people would consider inhuman. Like, how do I pick up women? Like, Jesus Christ.
I know.
Dysphoria,
just get tits. It's great.
Yeah.
So
also on that fun note, I do have to go to my dinner. But it was lovely meeting all of you, Marcus and
thanks
panel.
for coming.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, Maya, shout yourself out before you go.
Yeah.
I'm not really on Twitter right now, but I'll still put my Twitter. Thank you, Marcus, for the shout out.
Of course.
Yeah, my Twitter is OFCL Maya Claire, so official Maya Claire. And on Twitch, I do politics and reacts, and I yell at chuds, and we have a fun time with it. So if that's your thing, hop on by.
Thank you, Maya. Very much
All
appreciated.
right.
We'll talk later. Have fun.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hi, Maya.
See
Nice
ya.
meeting you.
So, Josie, you mentioned that Obergefell is on the chopping
Yeah.
block.
hmm
I don't know if anybody was in my chat today when we were going over a story from Louisiana that happened this week, but a little girl, 5, her dad died in a workplace accident and was adopted by her aunt, who is a lesbian, married to a woman, and her school kicked her out the first week because lifestyle choices of the parents, who is her aunt.
Wow.
Yeah. So Louisiana is a very weird place, very fucked up. This was a Baptist academy, they call it,
Yeah.
um, in De Quincy, Louisiana. It's out in the middle of nowhere outside of Lake Charles. And it does underscore that, at least to me, that those kinds of attitudes and that readiness to accept that kind of backslide are in existence, at least in these like very reactionary rural areas. That kind of shit doesn't really fly in the capital or in New Orleans. New Orleans is super gay. It's incredibly gay.
Yeah.
But out in the sticks where there's nothing going on and like these stories really don't make national news, this shit happens all the time, and there's very much a acceptance within certain institutions of these things, like being ready for when that time comes. Um, do you see that readiness at least within your space in DC for that backslide?
Oh, good question. So when it comes to DC is like its own animal, right?
Mhm.
Like when you take DC, it's like, oh yeah, there's the rest of the country, and then there's like what DC is doing, right?
Yeah,
There's a
the
like
beast
it's
with a
like that.
thousand tentacles.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many influences, all the different things. I will say that in the DC, like as far as DC is concerned, we're very, very like open. In fact, DC is actually one of the top places for trans people to live in the United States. Like as far as like rights and things like that, it's actually really, really, really good out here. However, I don't see currently with the administration what we're at right now that we can see any black sliding because there's already so much being pushed forward with executive orders. Like we're about to have a Title IX change. We're now discussing Rule 1557, which is going to also affect healthcare. That's the one that's where Trump kind of affected it, where it's like making it really hard for trans people to get healthcare, LGBT people. So there's going to be hopefully a new rule there that's going to happen, which is really great. So we're starting to see a lot of pushing in that direction. But as far as black sliding, if the worst happens in 2024, yeah, it all goes right back down the other way. And it will be even worse because it will be emboldened by a Republican administration. So DC is very fickle, right? But it's also very powerful. So whatever direction that pendulum has the power, it will swing it in that direction in an effective way. Like I said, Secretary Becerra met with trans kids, Department of Health, to say that hey, transitional care is important, right? Like that is stuff that would not happen under a Republican administration. And you got to realize that the Republican administration, if there was one, which there was one, puts their power in everything, right? Like they all their jobs, they just get all these jobs, and then all the people below those people get into new powerful jobs in the non-NGO space, right? Because
Mhm.
that's what happens in DC, right? It's like this weird like cyclical thing where it's like, okay, the administration's in power, so all the Democrats have all the jobs in the administration and all the like the power brokerage, right? And then the nonprofit sector. But then the Republican administration loses, the nonprofits have to raise a lot of money because they have to bring in a lot of staff. Because that's what has to happen. We have to make sure that the people that are good at what they do continue to work. And that's kind of what happens, is cyclical ebbs and flow of the power dynamics, and that happens. A lot of those people go all over the country too. So it's not they just stay in DC. A lot of them will go to nonprofits and things across the country, or go and do other things, run for office, right? And because they don't have a job, so it's like, oh,
Yeah.
time to run for office.
Time to write a book about all the things that I could have leaked to the press about all the wrongdoings, but let's do a book tour.
Yes, exactly, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm unemployed now.
Michael fucking Bolton.
So systematically,
Bolton,
yes,
not
it's
Michael Bolton.
designed. Oh, I know, right? John Bolton.
I said Michael Bolton at first.
At least he didn't say
that's funny.
Troy Bolton.
Troy. Paradigm, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
about to ask the
Paradigm.
same
Yeah.
thing.
I know Paradigm's been here the whole time. I need to stop silencing him.
I'm sorry. I have so many questions. This is
No,
my bad.
yeah, it's fine. I'm silencing him. It's fine. I
Okay.
can do that.
First of all, don't do this. Don't do this here. Don't do this here. I'll hit you up later. Don't do this here. Don't do this here. I'll hit you up later. I'll text you.
All right.
Whatever, but don't do this. Because then I'm gonna say something, and then you gonna say something, and then it's gonna get to that point, and I'm gonna be like, "Look, I said it, but like, and she know what I'm talking about." She know
All
what I'm
right,
talking
I
about.
won't
Anyway.
spin you up.
Yeah,
So-
you know exactly. No, I wanted to respond to something you had said just because. Well, let's do it both ways because you had mentioned Grimlow. You had a lot of questions. I'm really here because it's not that I want to participate so much. It's like I'm starting the new season, and I thought, wow, this is something that people really need to hear. So instead of me just sitting there, in the chat and like letting that I'll be here and I'll be able to respond and whatnot. At sometimes I thought it would be just nice to have eyes on an important topic when it's time, and
That's
whatever
chill.
I can do for that, like I would love to do that. So that's what I'm here.
You're awesome.
What's up?
So you had brought up like that the Republicans have their hands in everything. For those of you who have not watched the movie The Devil's Advocate, starring Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves, very good movie. I covered it here, and one of the famous lines at the end of it in the Devil's speech is that Keanu's character asks, why do you seem to always try to get the souls of lawyers? Like, why is it always lawyers that you try to possess? And he's like, because with the law, I'm not doing the Al Pacino impression today. Because with the law, you can you can get your hands in everything. You can shape the world and the identity of what you want. You can target people and tell them it's legal. You can form a consensus around, oh, we know that OJ might or might not have done it, but that man's still walking free. So who really won in the end? We control everything if we control the law. It's like, yeah. So the fact that you really do have to compound on top of that visibility. It's normal. And when we say normal, it's not like you're normal. It's normal. Like
It's just normal.
Like life. Like, yo, we really make atom bombs, but don't trust trans people. Like, you see, it's like my brain don't function spending $800 billion a year on military stuff, but we're like, yeah, trans people are the root of all evil. It's like, but you the one who made the money is the root of all evil joke. Like, oh, you got the money.
Don't worry. Once they figure out how to launch trans people out of torpedo tubes,
What I'm
we'll start making
saying,
money.
like,
They did it with
That's right.
tardigrades.
Okay,
So
all right.
we're only a couple steps away.
just like, yo, and it's
Yeah, I don't
just-
want to power a warhead with trans paste, please. Let's not do that.
No, I don't care how powerful it is.
like, yo,
But the
and-
energy, it's over.
Where's trans Oppenheimer to make this one?
That's exactly like that. My whole thing. Oh my god! And this goes
Oppenheimer,
back. I'm about to
She-Her.
sound like a huge like. I love women. Oh, I'm a super for women. Whatever. It's like, yo, I really think about the fact that like in legitimate history, men are the one who start wars and like develop these mass like things, and then you say the woman should take care of the household. Then you get a woman who do that. You don't do enough. Why don't you got a job? Why don't you got a day? Like, it's like every layer of our society has already put women in such a nice, neat box of you can't do things that matter to society because that's not your place. Then like women start to gain some ground. Cool. So like we're gonna find another group of people to pick on. Oh, we're gonna find according to them, these are not my words. I hope y'all know that because some people might not know that. We're gonna find women adjacent people to hate on. And you know why I say women adjacent? And I'm gonna end this point with this. This is why I wanted to respond. It's because it was the same thing from the movie. He was like, you don't gotta get close to people. You just gotta make everyone around that person not like them. And then you slide in at the end of the conversation, you say, hey, so it looks like those lefties ain't really fighting for your rights. Why don't you come on with the right? Because, at least we pass legislation. At least you could be one of the good ones. Like, yo, oh my God. It's painful that I live in this duopoly of thought where I hear all this beautiful like advancement for a group of people. And I know, Josie, I think I said this to you the first time we ever talked. I still don't get why that's not the standard. Like, you're asking me to fight for everyone to get to a respectable point. And like, my issue is not the fight itself. My issue is that it's spearheaded by a group of people who live in a certain place at a certain time who will say out loud, we should have the freedom to be whatever we want, but just not those people. And then in that same breath be like, well, if they come for us, yeah, I'm talking about you Trumpers. If they come for us, if they come for him, they'll come for everybody. They already coming for you. They already coming for the people. The Keffel situation, you thought I wasn't going to loop it back there. The Keffel situation, they already come in. It's state sanctioned. Somebody made something up. So like the people who are legally allowed to carry guns carried out an order. Like, that don't scare you. Order. That don't. What is your? So for me, it's just like, I agree. Like Republicans get this nice hold on these little tiny spots that nobody's paying for. This judge here, this county clerk here, this MTA official here, and it's like that brings out the cohesiveness of, okay, now 1 in every 10 of those employees is a white supremacist. Is that wrong for me to say? That's probably wrong for me to say. But like every day I keep finding out that like 1 in 10 of you are white supremacists. Yeah. So either stop being white supremacists or stop being white supremacists. Yeah. But that's my.
And I think a lot of people don't even know, right? They're just not even know that they're perpetuating it, right? They're just like, oh, I'm just doing what my boss did and taught me how to do it. It's like, yeah, he taught you something bad. Like you should know what you're being taught. But I'm glad you brought it back to Keffels, right? Because I did want to talk about this point, and I'm glad that you brought it back because I did want to say this to this group here. So I was put in that Destiny Manifesto about 8 times. I was mentioned a total of 10, I think that's what it was. The 7 times that he mentioned me, it was straight lies. The one time was just like a weird one. It was just like didn't even make any sense. So I'm not gonna call it a lie, just like a misdirection. But the other things were just like straight, utter lies. And one of the things that he said on his stream is that when I said I knocked on doors for a living, he just flatly said, she's never knocked on doors for a living. Just like that. Just like he's looked it up, like he knew the evidence and the data. I'm like, okay, that's 10 years of my political history. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I build my entire career on. Like, you can't just do that, right? But the reason I want to bring that up is because that was the second time that I was not mentioned directly, but indirectly, because in the Buffalo Shooter Manifesto, my organization was brought up by name as a grooming organization that is hateful and deserves to be destroyed. And then not even within that same month, I have this giant online personality mention me in a manifesto, right? And a bunch of times on a list that said the commission of evil. Like, I mean, could you not like get any worse? Like, I'm on a list in that manifesto under the commission of evil. And it's like one of those things where it's just like, and I don't want to get emotional about it, but it's like it is one of those things where it's like it is so real. And what happened to Keffels is literally a small step away from me. Like it's a small minor step to me. I orbit. I am a part of her community. I'm very openly a part of her community, helped with donations, helped her bring, people within that organization to her stream, right? Like I have those connections. I was able to connect that, right? And like, it's only a matter of time, right? And that I think is what's so scary, is that I've already been mentioned in two ways, one indirectly and one directly, several times directly in one. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's scary, right? I don't know when I'm walking down the street if I should be watching my back, which I should be, right? I'm pretty recognizable with my purple curly hair, right? It's part of my persona. It's part of who I am politically now. It's like becoming part of the identity of who I am, but I'm easy to spot in a crowd. And that's terrifying to me. And and being like a micro celebrity, right? And I say micro very, very loosely. I like celebrity very loosely, right? Because it's like San Diego County, I can walk around, people know who I am, right? Like I've ran for office there, right? And I was there doing political stuff for a long time. And then I'm on Twitch. Sorry, my camera is out of focus. I didn't set
No, you're
the
good.
right. Yeah. So the whole thing is just it's been really hard, because it's hard to not take this personal, right? And seeing this happen and just knowing that could have been me, right? That could be that, that could easily have been me, right? The only thing I got going for me is I just recently moved, right? So I'm not even where I was, which is important, and I'm doing my best to lock that shit down. And it is mine. So that's kind of one of those things where it's very real. I have thought in the last week if I thought that Twitch is even worth me doing. I'm not even Twitch streaming now, because I was just like, it wasn't even worth my time to just go and pull up my stream. And I'm just like, I'm just going to do this, just have this interview. I just got a whole day of flying, and I don't want the stress of being hate rated. Let's be honest. That's really what it is, right? And having to put on that face of some idiot doing something in my stream, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, is it worth it? I'm not doing Twitch for a living, right? Like this is something that I do for fun. Like Keffel said that I'm a professional grass toucher, like compared to her. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I guess, right? So should my hobby put me in harm's way? And that's a real calculus that I have to really put together, right? And it's a terrible thing.
I feel like I feel like every streamer or YouTube personality goes through that questioning, but I think it happens at different times depending on what groups, like marginalized groups, they belong to. Like, I feel like trans content creators are usually like, even in tiny audience numbers, are the first to get like shit on in the comments or hate rated or whatever. And that fucking sucks. But
Yeah.
I just, yeah.
So,
Ugh.
Yeah,
I would like your reactions to like me actually contemplating not streaming anymore and just streaming on Discord or something.
I
where
would like
have
to
more
respond
control.
to that, if that would be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, that's a real situation. I was gonna say something nice. I was gonna be like, first of all, you can't leave me here alone by myself. Like I need you. But like, no, this is it's a real situation. I hate that people don't get the gravity of having to contemplate that. Like, I get that. Like, I've known like somebody has called me before in my life. His name was Kenny, and he was like, "Yo, we gotta hang out sometime again. Like, I'm on the block this time." And he was like, "Yo, if we don't get a chance to, like, it's whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, he's definitely heading into some like enemy territory or whatever. He's trying to do his little last thing. If he don't make it out, he ain't make it out." And it's like, my dad will tell me, especially after that happened, he was always like, I always tell you, you got to be careful when you go out there, stuff be popping off. And it's like, that's just a product of my environment that I got to have that general. And here's where I'm gonna throw a little science in because I know you can confirm this. That's where that anxiety, like that low level vibrational, I'm always worried, starts sinking in, and you live with that. So you kind of ignore it after a while because you're used to that. People ask why you be getting so anxious or whatever, because I'm always in a state of like, what do you mean you could be safe here? I can't hear nothing for 5 miles down the road. Like, it's quiet out here. How do y'all live like this?
Yeah.
And then, so I'm furthering the point. It's like now I think about that, and that's just where I'm at. It has nothing to do with who I am. It could be anybody. Now it's like that is a reality for a specific group of people. And that is like a clear and present danger, and nobody weighs like how that's gotta feel. Like the fact that you even want to talk on a show anymore is like, you don't owe that to us. You don't owe that to nobody. If you really was like, yo, I'm changing my name, I'm dipping from this country, I'm out of here, like I would have to be like, damn, I'm sad, but like, yeah, absolutely. Because somebody from somewhere else is doing that and is super high profile. Imagine how many times that's been done. Nobody gave a shit. And then people really say like, you wanted to do this to win a medal in a fucking high school and college game. Like, like you bro, are you gonna buy it? Are you gonna buy the medal? Is that why you're asking me? Because it's like special. Because like, why would I put myself through all of this? And this is just being a public figure on a website. We're not talking about day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
Having a child. We're not talking about taking that child out and having the names be called. We're not talking about walking in the train, being followed, nobody caring or looking at you because they don't want to look at you because they don't understand you. Like, yo, there is a class of human that is just like right now, literally without a shadow of a doubt, second class, and nobody's. You're still being here and you're still being you. Like, yeah, I totally understand not wanting to be in too much of a public eye. I had no idea about the manifesto mentioned. Like, that's creepy. Men are
Yeah.
creep. This platform has a lot of creepy men.
Yeah.
And it's like how can you? I got a question, and I would like to direct it towards you, but it goes to anybody. But I think it really would go for like just you and Amber. And if it's too personal, you don't have to answer. When have you ever had the personal release of social anxiety? When do you feel at your safest? And whoa, no, stop. I heard the clip chimps going nuts. That I phrased that terribly. I phrased that terribly. That sounded like a massive setup. Now, this is just a lesson. I shouldn't even be taking over this like this, but I'm just saying this is a lesson. You see how even though like everybody knows me not to be like anywhere near that type of person, I pull myself back because I wouldn't want somebody to get the wrong idea. It's a live streaming platform. You will make mistakes. If I immediately say, wait, no. They know me. They know what I mean. Like I could translate that for the rest of, then there's no issue. But again, we got creepy ass men who write whole books and like mention. Anyway, that's going back in circles.
Yeah.
What I mean is, do you have a belief, a core, like a core place? How do you feel?
Like a litmus test for your own safety.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, like precisely. Like
yes, thank you.
There are certain types of people that I do not feel comfortable. Like, it's usually the white chud dude who, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like your typical chud.
Like
Usually
typical
is my
chud.
not safest, but safe. If
I mean, I feel like that's like really hard to intellectualize almost because it's very like visceral, right? Like you can't really just lay it all out there.
If I'm being honest, I feel like it's anyone who's not like physically attracted to me. if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's when I feel safest.
Yeah.
Which,
Ooh.
you know, says a lot about being a woman, but like that's the truth.
Thank you for saying it that way, because that's very clear. I can feel that sometimes. Like, I'm a very flirtatious person, so
I don't mean to be. I'm just a social
Yeah.
person, and it comes off
Yeah.
like that to a lot of people, and it's shitty
I am
because, you
too.
know, we don't have a lot of control over where a situation like that goes just because of how the genders have been socialized, and that makes it
Yeah.
fucking hard to not get in situations like that when you're just trying to be a nice person.
So where I feel safest, you know, because I was trying to think of that in a lot of ways, right? Sometimes it's just me sitting in the train. Nobody knows I'm trans. And I'm just like another person on the train. Sometimes I feel safe that way. I don't know. It's like one of those things. It's like I'm on point. My hair's on point, wearing a hot dress, like looking good. Like, I'm just like, none of these fuckers know I'm trans. And I'm just like, that's a good feeling sometimes, because sometimes it's like I wear my identity on my sleeve so much. It's nice to be able to be like, I'm just a girl here, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, I don't have to like qualify it, right? But I think, like, to be honest, the safest is probably a trans support group where everybody has my identity. Like, I know it's like really, that's a really strict. I when I say that, it's kind of depressing, right? Because I'm just like, is that really the only real social environment I feel the safest in? And the answer is yeah, that's it. Because I feel like I don't have to put up a mask of like, I'm this trans person. I have to present a certain way for these people to be able to, like, it's everybody does the social dance, right? And I feel like there's a bar that is like very high for a trans person to get into that social space. So when I'm in a space of just like trans women, like, we are just a giddy, like, ha ha ha, like talking about, it's just a lot of fun. It's, you know, and it's just like a place where nobody has any judgment. It's just like a pure and utter blissful safe space. And that's really it. And so, because even in a group of just women mix, right? Sometimes I feel like, is there a cis girl in here that doesn't think I should be here right now? Like, that thought is in there, right? Even me walking into a bathroom, sometimes I'm just like, am I gonna find the one person that looks under my neck and sees a little scar and says, "What's that?" Right? And I'm just like, I still think that, you know. So yeah.
I asked because one, I ask deep questions. It's just what I do. But two, I wanted to bring it back around to at least what I believe the panel was originally about. I think it was just like trans misinformation and disinformation. Oh God, I don't want to do this right now. Jeez, that's bad of me. My chat is like throwing like titties in my face right now, and I hate it. And and you don't understand. Like, I don't know which one of my mods added these emotes, but like I would remove you all if I wasn't scared. All right, because y'all, I knew that was gonna sidetrack me, and we said it too. Oh man.
You gave your community ammunition to sidetrack you? That's terrible. What are you thinking?
They literally said that the first moment I told them about it. It's like, why would you do this? Okay, no, I got this. I wanted us to have an understanding that people who are listening, who are dejectors, like I just had one in my chat, it was weird. People who hear this,
see,
and
I would be getting it. Sorry.
People, yeah, exactly. But exactly. Literally, that was where I was going. It's like,
see, they can't find me, so they're just gonna jump on somebody on this handle they know. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's all good. It's all good.
Send them. Fuck them.
Man, fuck them. You gotta fail. Yo, there's a whole. I got memes on that too. You are now dejecting to honest people's feelings. You see that? Like, I can give you all the numbers, but it's funny that y'all start to get a little antsy when you can start to relate. Oh, wait, I know what that's like. Oh, but the person who's saying it, you don't agree with their existence, is not making sense. That's why I asked. See, now there's a baseline.
Yeah.
These people aren't making this up because they're sitting on a show and they want to make it the most dramatic thing ever, and I'm throwing all the facts to own all the righties. It's like, no, I walk outside my house and I got to think about those numbers. You put them on Twitter because it's fun for you. Like,
Yeah.
we're doing
Yeah.
a good thing. Why are you trying to ruin it? Why are you trying
Yeah.
to, trans rights? What we doing here?
I know. And and this is something about like talking about misinformation, and I'm going to go a different direction with this too. The reason trans rights are legitimately human rights is because if you were to give all trans people human rights, then everybody else would get rights too. Trans people have been in the forefront of almost every civil right movement that has ever existed in the United States. We have led the charge, thrown the first bricks. We have been the people that fight and are visible and are the people that are first in line to get our heads cracked open, right? We really are. Outside of the Black civil rights movement, that's where trans people have been, right? And we Black trans rights, come on. And that's still taking time. See, we're not even there yet. And that's what I mean. Trans rights are human rights because it's so intersectional. Trans people have been in the forefront of all of these social rights justice movements, intersecting with their own identities. And we are the first people to be trampled upon when everybody else gets their rights. And until we actually get our rights and no longer get trampled behind the people that we're trying to get rights for, we will never achieve pure human rights in this society. And so that's really where it's coming from, right? Where people want to find the edgelords, right? The edgelord bigots that are like, okay, I can't say this about Black people as much anymore as openly. So now I'm going to choose a different target that is more able to freely do it. And they'll keep going down the line over and over and over until there's no more. And guess what? I believe trans rights is that final frontier of of human rights, because once we give true rights to trans people, then where are the bigots going to go then? Right? Are they going to go back to phenotypes? Right? They might. Right?
Yeah, that's why we always bring up the biological essentialist arguments, because that always seems to be like the Bailey that they retreat to every single time.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's the thing that I think is really important to note, is that trans people, this isn't something that trans people just got up one day and like, hey, I want to exist. No, we've been fighting for existence for a long time. And this isn't something that is new. Right. This is something that we have been bleeding on the streets for. Right. And that's why there's so few trans elders, right? Because they've been trampled upon, right? They've lost their lives. They're no longer with us, or they have physically been beaten into the closet, right? And they just don't want to deal with it anymore. And that's why it's really refreshing when you see these young people coming out in the numbers that they should be, right? Because it's actually like, oh my gosh, you can actually exist in school? That's amazing. Right. And I'm gonna veer off to another big misinformation point, which is social contagion. That there is, because I just brought it up, right? More young people are coming out than ever before, right? And people will use that argument against me, saying, oh my God, you're transing the kids, right? The kids are becoming transed. And essentially what I like to bring up, and the best way to do it, is if you look at the left-handed chart, right, of people in the left with left-handedness.
Yep.
That's it, right? In the 1800s, it was seen as a degenerate thing to do. You're like possessed by the devil if you wrote with the left hand, right? Like that's what it used to be in the late 1800s. And when it became socially acceptable, guess what? All these kids picked up pencils for the first time with their left hand because they weren't beaten by society to say stop, where they literally had a teacher with a ruler smacking their hands, right? And then once that stopped, it shot up to 16% and it leveled out to this day, right? At 16%. And that's what's happening right now with trans folks. We're
Yeah.
actually able to be trans in a lot of spaces, which is great.
Yeah, so that's a very like academically grounded understanding, which of course you love to see. One of the things we always talk about on here is how a lot of the cultural issues, social issues, certainly rear their ugly heads within academic circles. I know you, like you kind of mentioned earlier, right? You're a professional grass toucher. How often do you see the same bullshit that you see online out in the real world, like especially in those more like academic policy oriented spaces? Like, is that like a common thing that you experience, or like not so much because maybe people have like been through the educational system and kind of arrived at a lot of those understandings that you just mentioned?
So I'm an institutional leftist for a reason, because
I like that.
I'm not an online leftist. I'm an institutional one. And so basically, in the real world, let's just say it, real world where things get done, where laws get passed and things like that, you have a very small minority of people that actually embody their online Twitch persona. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and maybe Ron DeSantis to a degree at this point in Trump, right? Those are like the big ones that are like the online persona come to life in a really scary way. But in reality, a lot of people are just like trying to get work done. And I notice when I'm working in, doesn't matter if I disagree with people fundamentally. Like I can have a fundamental disagreement about an environmental policy with somebody. Someone's not going to go, well, you're just an idiot that doesn't understand that. No, it's more like, hey, I'm going to go whip these votes and I'm going to go and get more votes than you. So therefore I'm going to pass this. Right. And that's where I see, like, at least in my world, it's like that. Working with the National Center for Trans Equality, I do work a U.S. Trans Survey. I do work with PhDs. A lot of them are trans identified, and I work with a lot of people who are just like their whole lives are research, their whole lives are politics, organizing. They're just really just people just getting a lot of really amazing stuff done. And I've literally brought this up to the research team, and where they're a little older. They're about 15, average 15 years older than I am. I'm actually pretty young on the team, on the research team. And I would bring up things, and I was like, why don't you put like fey gender as one of the gender selections on here? And they're like, what? And I was like, oh, really? You never heard of it? And then I had to like educate them that people are starting to identify that way, that are younger and things of that nature. And it was really interesting because not that many people have the opinions online. And the best way that you can do it, and this is probably the best illustration I have, because I was talking about door knocking, right? I've knocked on maybe 100,000 doors in San Diego total, probably. No, well, definitely if I count the people that I manage going out to the doors, for sure. But personally, tens of thousands. Knocking on the doors is the most informative thing that you could do for yourself to understand what normal people behind in your neighborhoods are thinking. I know because when I go walk around, when I was like ill-informed new door knocker, I was like, oh yeah, these are the things that matter, right? The talking points, the talking head points, right? That everybody kind of knows. And then all of a sudden I knock on 10 doors and every one of them talked about the car that got broken down the street and they want more public safety. Or that I walk down the street and there's roots in their tree growing underneath the sidewalk, which is making the kids trip every now and then, right? Like, or the fact that they're building they want more transit so they can get to work on time, more bus lanes and things like that. It's those things that people are actually talking about, and very rarely did I get somebody who's like an online person that says something really bizarre, and I'm just like, oh yeah, we're doing this, right?
Yeah,
And
culture
like,
war kitchen table conversations are very insular.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I always recommend this to everyone. Go knock on go to a campaign that actually knows what they're doing. Go grab a packet of doors. Go do one volunteer shift for a campaign that for a candidate that you like, and you'll get really quick training on what actual people think. And I'm serious. One packet is all it takes for you to realize that we're in our own little world online, and that the things that matter online are just edgelord cases that really don't matter at all, because the things that we're talking about when we're getting stuff done is making sure trans people have access to healthcare, making sure trans people have the rights to services, making sure that trans people aren't abused in public spaces, right? Those are the things that we're fighting for. We don't care about the trans person's identity, right? If they identify as a trans person, that's who they are, right? That's why I always laugh when people are like these different pronouns or xenogender or whatever, right? For me, it's like my first question is, are they trans? Right? When people try to have that conversation with me, and they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, then why are we communicating about somebody's gender if you're not a part of that gender category? Like, I'm not going to talk to a man to tell me what a woman is, right? I'm not going to talk to a man to tell me the women experience, right? That's just not what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to find my own women experience deep down inside of here, because I am one, right? And then reference that to all of my female friends, right? And be like, oh yeah, this is what us girls do, right? And that's what we do. But as far as like, I don't understand a cis person's need to try to define something they have no clue what it is. Like, a cis person just doesn't understand what it is to be trans. I'm sorry, y'all probably don't. Right? That's why we're having a long, protracted conversation right now, because it's important for you to hear my experience and Amy, right? No, Amy was here, right? Who was the other trans
Maya.
girl that was here?
Maya.
Maya, sorry. So Maya, like, you brought us on, and we're thankful for to hear our experience of what it is for us and what it looks like for us to be trans, because outside of that, it's just speculation, right? It's just speculation. And that's why I like being asked questions like this, because these questions actually can possibly illuminate somebody's thought on what something is, demystifying trans sports, demystifying, right, what a lot of these things are. Because I feel there's a point in our society right now where people like, I didn't ask the trans question earlier enough and I'm afraid to ask it now, right? Like, it's like one of those things. It's like, I like being the friendly local neighborhood trans girl that will take your questions, even though you maybe don't know and it may seem ignorant. Like, I take those questions because I want to inform people. And I think that there's a lot of people who are like a little skittish. You're like, oh, should I not ask this question? Like it's one of those things. It's like, don't be like that. Be open-minded. Say, hey, if I ask this question, if it's inappropriate, like, tell me it is, right? And that's it, right? And then, because if somebody says, hey, Josie, did you get the surgery? I'm like, if they don't know me like that, I'm like, I usually, this is, depending on what that person's own, because the person who's asking that is probably not trans. It depends. If it's just a random stranger. So usually if it's a male presenting person, I'll be like, I will tell you if you tell me your dick size. And there would be like, what? And I was like, it's just as appropriate. Like, if you want to know something personal about me, like, I want to know something about, put some skin in the game. Give me something first before you start, like, it's like, take a girl to dinner first. Jeez, it's like, these questions are appropriate. And if a cis woman asks me, I say, what's your vagina depth? Are you like, oh, like when you're having sex, is it like, is it good? And like, you know what I mean? Like,
can you imagine if we measured that?
I know, right? Just get a little like dipstick and just like.
Don't give the race scientist any more ideas, Amber.
It's just girls DMing about their depth.
Yeah,
I
they're
sent you my depth. Please respond.
Oh, it's so unappealing. Okay.
That just
I take
tells
it
you
back.
how phallic centric everything is. It's always
Yeah,
about dick
seriously,
size.
you don't realize
Right,
it
like-
until you try to make a female equivalent or a like woman equivalent, and it's just
Yeah.
fucking weird.
It is a weird question to ask, right? So that's so sometimes I'm facetious, but if it's like an actual friend that asks me that, it's like, oh, family member, absolutely gonna tell them, right? Like immediately, right? Like, because they're my family. I tell my family medical history, right? That's what I do, just like all of us, right? Or a close personal friend. It's like I've probably already told them when my surgery date is, right? Like, those are the things. But like, if it's like an older person that I've known for a while and they're just really are just genuinely curious and they don't know that it's a bad thing to ask, I'm not going to ask like an 85-year-old man what his dick size is. I'm going to be more explanatory of like, this is why this question isn't inappropriate. I will tell you, but as long as you don't ask another trans person that. That's usually what I say, right? It's like if I'm close with that person in some way where it's like, it's like sharing somebody of like, oh yeah, I got a boob job, right? Like a friend is like, oh yeah, I got a boob job, right? It's like one of those things that people can share if they want to share, right? I didn't actually have a boob job. These are real, baby. But so that's what I feel about that. But I feel like I've rambled, so moving along.
No, you're all good. I mean, we should probably ask you since we're a little bit over the 2-hour mark. How are you on time, Josie? How are you feeling?
I am free. I'm fine. I'm good. I got streamer stamina. What are you talking about?
True.
Yeah,
I think I lost mine after the first year, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Get so
Lately with the
tired
partner
now.
bush, I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know.
Josie, you brought up earlier something that I really liked, and I'm gonna clip for the Ministry of Science Discord that trans people have been at the forefront of social progress forever, and it reminded me of the old James Baldwin interview of how long must I wait for freedom. You asked my father to wait, you asked my mother, my brother, and how long do I have to wait for progress? It reminded me a lot of that it's kind of been in the background, this kind of unspoken truth of one, trans people's existence within, Western cultures existed, as you know, all over the world, but that we haven't reconciled yet as a culture that one, you've always been here and you always will be, but that you and people who share your experiences have been here for people who have gotten a taste of that. And I really liked what you said about it. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I do believe it, and it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Josie, I'm really inspired by how you are so in touch with politics and really get involved in getting your hands dirty. And because I talk a lot about getting involved with open boards at the city level, commissions. These are unelected places. So if you're scared or you don't want to run for election, you can actually do a lot of things like go to the library board at your local city hall, and you can have a big impact on the library programming and all that kind of stuff. I mean, my city has millions of dollars to spend every year for the library, so it's really cool. And I was just wondering if you could reflect on maybe ways for people to get involved and ways your experience at the local level.
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. So it's definitely something that it can be as big or as small as you want it. So when I was first, it's identifying where the need is, right? Like for example, when I was in college, there wasn't a college Democrats for the San Diego State University. So I actually put a charter together, got a staff, and boom, had a charter, had a bunch of people, had a board, and then had meetings. And now it's still in existence, right? It's still going strong. And that was really helpful, and it was also low stakes. So like when I was like, doing that and had volunteers, it's like, oh, somebody dropped the ball and didn't like invite 10 extra people, and we only have like 5 people in here. It's like, okay, it's a college club, who cares, right? Like, it's like, do better next time, right? Very low stakes, and I really like that, right? Especially if you're in an educational system, definitely go join a club and be a part of it. Be a member of some type of committee, be it be a local Democratic club or a local, org that does, volunteering, or like you said, with like a library board and things like that. But being a part of like a membership first is really important, so you can actually see different styles of leadership on different boards. I started the San Diego Progressive Democratic Club, and it was really, really hard, but I had a lot of experience with building clubs with the San Diego State, and I had like a group of people. That was really hard. That was a heavy lift. So I'm not telling anybody to go start a club unless there is no club, then do it. It's not that hard. But go, and if you want to be political, go to your local Democratic Party. Like, go and type in your county right now with Democratic Party, and I guarantee you a local Democratic Party is going to pop up, right? And go to one of their meetings, sit and see what a Robert's Rules of Order meeting goes like. Make a comment if you have a comment to make. Those are the type of things that will start kind of getting you in the flow, if you like it or not, right? Because one thing that I get frustrated about as an organizer is you get somebody that's like new hard charger, wanting to get in charge right away and all that stuff, and they're like, they do it for like 4 months. They're like, God, it's just a lot of work for no money. And then like you're like, yeah, like, what are you doing? And they're like resigning after 6 months. And it's like, man, like, why can't you keep the flow of the elections going, right? And then you have to appoint somebody, and then it's just a big pain in the butt. So first, and see if you like the board process, right? Like that's something that you really gotta. Is that your jam? Is that your jam, to go and sit in an agenda, make amendments, and go and do all that type of stuff? Or maybe that type of board isn't for you. Maybe you need to find something a little bit more loose. Maybe you need to go join an activist organization that has that startup culture. It's like nobody knows what's going on, but they're all working on something together, right? Like, that's also important to experience as well. I've been on the board of an organization like that before. But after time, I got really, really good at it. So here is my list of current boards. I'm on the Lived Experience Advisory Committee for the Suicide Prevention Resource Center. I just got voted onto the board of the Trans American Veterans Association. I'm on the Trans Advisory Committee for the DNC. Those are the 3 that I'm on right now. I'm about to go and figure out what local Democratic clubs I want to get a part of, and I'm going to go see which one fits my groove the best, and then I'm going to probably get in the leadership of that in about a year. And that's the way. You hear that? In about a year or 2. It's about sitting there, learning the culture, understanding the org, and then going into it, right? That or trying to get into leadership. Even though I'd probably be fine right off the gun, but I don't want to go in there and start disrupting stuff unless that's what they want, right? If they're like, no, Josie, we want a whole new culture, we don't want you to know anything. Okay, great. Then I can maybe provide that. But I also have the experience of being able how to lead that, right? So it's not something you can just do. So there's that. Then there's also some table turning ways to do it. Now, this may be more juicy way of doing it for some of the people watching, is get a group of about 15, 20 people. Go into a club or an organization that doesn't do very good, right? They're just like, they're completely not knowing what the hell they're doing. Yeah. Go in there for about 3 or 4 months, and then all of a sudden you're in the voting structure. You have your 15, 20 people. You realize that the club is actually only about 20 people itself. Get a few people to switch your way, boom, you just took over the entire club, and now it's your direction and what your community and group people wanted to do. That is very effective, and what's nice about that is you get to basically steal the car. Right? Like, you're like, oh, give me those keys. Those are mine. Thanks for this nice vehicle and established name and all the things that came with it. Now we can actually make it into our own image. And there is tons of organizations like that need that treatment. There are like old Democratic clubs where the average age is 75 years old. I'm not kidding. Right, where literally you go in there and they're like, oh my gosh, a young person, can you do work? Like, it really is like that sometimes. And so there are so many different avenues that you can take that can get you involved in the community level, board level. And like I said, I'm on national boards, and I'm about to get on a local one too. But I've been doing boards for like over a decade now. So it's something that I can just jump on a national board and get voted in really quick, because I go and I drop the resume I just said now, and they're like, yes, right? That's usually what happens, right? Because they're like, you have the experience. We want you to help, drive the steering committee of where we're going. And that's like, okay, we can do that. And that's what it takes. But it's a lot easier than people think. And you just got to figure out where the need is.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much. I have getting the survey of the land, I think, is such the wisdom of like seeing how things operate. Like, would you like a more executive role versus legislative? Do you like compromising with people? These are all like really interesting skills that you can go for. And so I like in 2015, or I went for one of the delegates for California's 52nd district for Bernie and stuff. Maybe I got your vote, Josie.
You were in my district. You were outside. I ran for Congress in 2020 in District 53.
Oh, cool.
Pre-transition. Yeah, I'm the reason Susan Davis dropped out.
Oh, wow. That's a familiar name.
Yeah.
So I went in there.
22 years.
And I went in there and like I went in there with one vote. And I walked out with 10. So I was, you know what? That was like a big increase percentage wise. But I
voted in that election.
Oh, awesome! The delegate, I was at like the cars. There's a bunch of car dealerships and stuff. Anyway, so
but I at least helped organize part of the slate that probably beat you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. But the thing I learned though is like I go in there, and it was really interesting seeing the relationships and stuff people had already developed. And I went in just exactly like you were talking about, like just like a young person. I was just, I want to get involved. And then I noticed all these connections people had. And my immediate response was very spiteful. Like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe, of course, this is the establishment. This is what we're trying to be. This is not fair, all that kind of stuff. And then like on reflection, I'm just like, man, wait, these people know each other for years. Like I'm coming in there first time and it's like, who am I, like to actually like think that these people are going to vote for me. And then that's when when I moved, I was like, you know what, I just need to get involved and start like going. And that's when I started volunteering for a nonprofit through City Hall. But
that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing to get involved, like to try to see, like survey who and get in these discussions and go to the meetings. And just by showing up, you have so much power than not going, that just showing up gives you a lot of power in a lot of scenarios.
It's a common phrase in politics that 90% of politics is showing up.
Oh,
it's very common. It's like
it makes
90%.
Sense.
Yeah. So for example, today, because my flight was canceled, I missed a Victory Fund happy hour with all of these LGBT candidates that were supposed to be here in DC, and I missed it. And that's like a stab in my heart, right? Because I didn't show up. Right, like that matters, right? Like I know that like the deputy policy director was like, "What the fuck is Josie?" Right, like when they were like the Victory Fund, right? Like and it's like that it's like it's one of those things where it's just like it really is a thing, and eventually when you start showing up, people expect you to show up, and then they start voting for you to stay. That's what ends up happening. Like it's like, oh, this person shows up. So that means they're reliable. Let's vote for them to just show up for us. It's a really really simple concept, but that's really what it is. I think it's hilarious though that I basically helped organize all of the Bernie slates that cycle. I was a Bernie delegate too, and so now I
Nice.
feel a little guilty to throw in the salt at you.
I was going for Bernie.
Yeah,
no, it's okay. It was
we were
fine.
all going for Bernie.
Yeah. It was interesting seeing everyone saying like, I would vote for Bernie no matter what, all that kind of stuff. They're basically trying to hardline, all the no matter what happens at the convention or whatever. And
but it was like, but it was like a few people got all the votes though, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Like it's like hundreds of people, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't.
You win against the Josie machine. How'd that feel?
Overwhelming. But it was a good, it was my first like foray in getting involved.
That's
and
awesome.
so
I'm glad that didn't demotivate you. I'm really glad that you like took a step back and were like, oh yeah, these people, like I organized, I helped organize the first, or I was the lead of the first Bernie March in San Diego.
Oh,
right?
cool.
And it was that Bernie March that really solidified a lot of those relationships, because we were like the OGs, right? We were the ones standing on the overpass with the Bernie lights and all of that stuff. Like we organized, and I was also running for city council that year.
Cool.
In District 7, San Diego at the time, against Scott Sherman at the time. So yeah, I ran in that race, and I actually pulled in 17% against an incumbent, which was pretty good on that one. Yeah, but it was definitely, I was the only Bernie candidate in San Diego. I was the only one that was like, if I would have ran in District 9, I would have won. I'm glad I didn't win though. So this is Josie wisdom, okay? I am very, very, very glad that I did not win my first city council race, because if I would have won my first city council race, I would have been insufferable, because I wouldn't have been humbled. I would have just been like, I'm just a badass. Nobody can tell me I'm wrong. I would have been like, nobody expected me to win, so fuck it. I won, and now everybody can fucking eat it, right? And that would have created a very spiteful, like, egomaniac type of person. I know I would have been really hard for me to like back down from like, I know this shit, you don't, right? It was those humbling defeats that really allowed me to grow as a human and understand the playing field and better build relationships than I was ever able to do in the past. That's why I lost. Right?
Yeah.
That's why a lot of candidates lose.
That's why I lost
they don't
against you.
have that mature. Yeah. You just don't have it.
Exactly.
But it humbled you. It humbled you, and now look at you, right?
Yeah.
Volunteering, doing things, getting involved in the infrastructure, because those defeats can be extremely educational.
Yeah.
In fact, those are probably the best educational experiences, learning experiences of my life. I don't know, Marcus, I don't know if you can agree with me that. Are you still bitter about yours?
Sorry, about what?
Paradigm. I meant Paradigm, not you. I'm sorry. Paradigm. Are you still bitter about your defeat?
100%. Marquise.
Marquise.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mispronounced your name.
No, it's because that's how we met. That's why I'm laughing. Like, that's how we met. Specifically that exact interaction. And it's like, it's all a circle. It's just all a circle.
Oh, yeah, time's a flat circle.
Well, time's a flat circle. Actually, there was a chatter, Kisara in chat, who literally actually like just put 2 and 2 together, Josie, and recognized you from that San Diego Bernie March, and was like, "Oh my god, like I recognize you. Like, thank you. That was like really inspiring and like looped me in." So
yeah, Josie,
there you go.
You call yourself like a institutionalist, which is so interesting. Like I think that is something. Like fundamentally, I believe in democracy, and I believe in like generational change, and I do believe that like the institution is a good vessel for that. And I feel like it's very, I don't know, popular, or it being like a doomer, whatever you want to call it, like where it's like this system is wrong, so I don't want to contribute to it. It's kind of like a view, and I can understand that, where it's like it is so big, it can feel like this giant train that's just kind of passing you by and you're not on it. But I feel like empower people to try to chip away at it, to try to get involved where they can. And it is mostly like at the local level, I feel like, where you can actually have more radical beliefs, where you can actually like be elected and still be, you know, on the fringes kind of thing. I guess, like, what would you say to people that are really pessimistic about being able to change things through elections?
Oh, okay. So one thing that I say, number one, stop thinking about politics in 2 to 4 year cycles. Start thinking about them in decades. If you do that, you're going to do yourself a huge favor because it's a long arc, right? Where I see happen, and this is very much part of the problem of like progressive like campaigning, is like they make it like this 2 years we got to be able to vote, you got to put everything on a line, you got to freaking bleed, you got to die, you got to make sure it happens on the field. Like, I want you to lose income. I want your wife to divorce you. I want you to work so much that if we win this fight, we will save the world, right? And then that candidate gets like 10% of the vote, right? And the person's like, I just fucking sacrificed 2 years of my life on this bullshit, and this candidate was fucking garbage, right? And then you realize real quick that they didn't have a campaign infrastructure, that they were all platitudes, and they may have said the right things, and it can be extremely discouraging, right? That is probably the number one most demotivating factor of volunteers and people getting involved in electoral politics. They get sold a pile of goods saying that you're going to save the world if you volunteer now, right? And that is something we gotta stop doing that as a community, and we need to start saying, hey, this is a long game, and we're gonna fill up those boards, we're gonna take over those institutions, because these institutions have been around for like what, 250 years plus, right? Like these are things that have been enshrined in time, century, and generations, right? Like just absolute, just really hard to move things. However, that's not a necessarily bad thing, because think about, I like this metaphor or this analogy. If there was a nice apartment building, like just super nice, like it's like the like right in the middle of everything, you want to be in that apartment, but all of these really shitty people live there, right? Like they were just like really bad humans, and they were like kicking people on the street as they're walking in their doors and stuff like that. But let's say they all got vacated out of that space, right? Are you not going to live there because all of those stupid people lived there before and gave that building a bad reputation? No, you're probably going to live in that badass apartment with all the other people moving in with you. And guess what? That reputation of that building is going to change very quickly if you bring in a lot of good people with you. So I think a lot of people get angry at like the brick and mortar, right, of what the institution is like. And I know brick and mortar is maybe too literal, but it's the value of what that institution is. Some of those walls are worth preserving, right? Some of those things are actually like giving people healthcare. Some of those things are actually doing a service, and we need to make sure to be thoughtful of taking over that building. I know Jank calls it a ghost ship, right? Like all we got to do is just go in, take it over, and then we have a ship, right? Like that's really what it is. And I think people need to think about how long it takes to excavate or get everybody out that's in the way to go in and take over that institution. But once you have it, now you're in control of a building that's been there, or not a building, but an institution that's been there for like 250 years, right? Now you are unmovable yourself. And if you are a person that is like, okay, this is the values that we did, this is why we did it, and you start moving those big institutions, those trillions of dollars that the government has access to, now you're actually doing something. But people have to understand that that's going to take 10 to 20 years. And it's not going to be 10, 20 years just sitting there on your thumbs either. It's going to be 10 to 20 years of hard defeats, hard work, winning tough battles, and then eventually over time you start taking the territory, right? And eventually you look back and you're like 10 years later, like, holy shit, San Diego's blue. I was a part of that. Right?
Because yet again, I'm going to keep repeating it. We got our hands in the law. It's the easiest way. We go into the law, we go into the bar and we tell them, we're going to give you the most high profile case ever. And then what do? They go into their, this Al Pacino shit is hard. This shit is so hard. And then what? They end up going in, they go into the bar and they sell their soul and their dreams and then they win the big one. And then I ask them, you want another one? I gave you the chance to turn back, but you didn't take it. It was you who made these decisions. You got to you got to get people just as hungry for that.
Yeah.
They also want to save people. I want to raise food stamps. I want to try UBI. You got to get those same hungry people in those same positions that have been eaten up all throughout time by these very slow, very methodical defeats.
Absolutely. And I just want to also emphasize this. We have to get skilled, right? Like, do you think that the Republicans, like, that are going to those school boards and now being on those school boards and doing all of that stuff, it took them, how long they've been talking about CRT? All of these years have gone by, and now look at them. They're starting to take over these boards because they know how the system works now, because they were in there yelling at a mic and there's like a minute and then they have to move and they're like, okay, this is how the system works, right? Like that's how they got there. And that's what it takes. Like, it's going, and I'm going to tell you all right now, like, especially the new activists, you're going to work for a candidate that's garbage someday. I could tell you that right now, and you're going to be crushed by it. And you know what? And then you're going to be able to know what to look out for when somebody's bullshitting you next time. And then you're actually going to work for somebody viable, and you're going to put your work to something that's actually winnable, right? You start becoming more you have more political acumen. You're able to see who's the long shot and who's the one that can maybe win it. And then eventually you start working on those different ones. And then all of a sudden you realize that you have an entire team of people that have been in the trenches with you, going and fighting for a candidate that actually means something, and you fucking win it. Right?
Exactly. I think that's such a good point. It's like kind of also one of my biggest gripes with the Green Party in the United States, where they take no strides to go actually like and take any of these state house. They have zero. I just looked it up. Zero state reps out of 2,000 state upper chambers. Zero out of 5,411 in state lower chambers. Zero. We're talking 0 out of 7.
Theory on the Green Party.
And I honestly feel like the Green Party is a grift that happens every 4 years in order to fundraise for these people, and it's just it's a silo, and it attracted me. I feel embarrassed to say it, but I mean I voted for them in 2012. Where it was like I felt like Obama was killing United States citizens with drones, and that was not due process. And I was like, you know what, I'm going green this year, and I feel like what did that get me? What did that get me? I don't have any. And even the DSA has more institutional power than the Green Party. So
because like a state house in Connecticut, for example, they have 256 assembly members in Connecticut for a population as large as San Diego County of like 3.6 or something like that. And they have their state reps, they win with like 2,000 votes. Like straight up, like 2,000 votes will win them the whole election. Now, and then you realize real quick, it's like, oh wait, this state house is like part-time. I only have to work three months out of the year. And you're like, oh, this is why nobody does this. Right. And then you realize that you're just doing something, and now you have to uproot your life for like 3 years, find a job that will let you do that. And and it's like one of those things where it's just a complete and utter just a mess. So you're right. The Green Party has had 30 to 40 years to prove something, to present something. And really, it's just going to take on the ground organizing to do it. And we need to stop getting people discouraged. We need to tell people that, hey, when you get a part of this, we're going to change something, but you're going to have to work at it. Don't expect a miracle, because we're not here to do that. We're here to do real work. And real political people, people that actually do this work day in and day out, know that I can't think of anything longer than 6 years. Like if you want to see a real change on something.
Yeah, maybe I
Like
should have
that's
told that to those people I was working with. You know who I'm talking about. That
yeah.
like they really I sorry, so it's just a thing because we had this conversation before. I was working with some political people. I was doing an ad for them, and it's like we drove into Buffalo to do some work for oh my god, how could I forget her name? India Walton. And like they really just looked down on the city. There's like, ugh, poor people. They're like, we gotta go downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And like I was like, yo, y'all cannot literally be talking about you're getting big accounts and you're making changes and you're doing all this. It's gonna be a cool grassroots fundraising thing, and you're just taking people's money and partying with it. Like, what the fuck, yo?
Yeah, absolutely.
We need people who I feel like understand that the reason why, like, I don't know. I feel like, is it fair to ask if people are disillusioned from politics because they're so disconnected from it? Like FDR kind of came in there and kind of just steamrolled shit. Like, is that the bar for what lefties think is like for everything?
It's because they're looking at the national level. I feel like everyone's just looking. Our media's national, so our attention's national, so they don't see any of the progress that's been made. You know, like when I moved, I wanted to get involved, so I reached out to the ex-mayor that was the mayor for 25 years, and he was nice enough to give, like, I had coffee with him, and I talked to him, and I was like, man, like, you were, you know, a Democratic mayor in a Republican city, like, why wouldn't you want to go for, you know, governor or something like that? And he was like, they tried to get me too, but you know what? I have way more of an impact here. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, California's the fifth largest economy in the world. You have a big, huge impact. He's like, no. He's like, Greg, I can go all around the city and show you 36 projects that I personally helped get through and helped pass and made a huge impact on everyone's lives here. I was like, dang, it was very humbling.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to find politicians like that, and we need more people.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to stop making it so mystical. Like I will say it right now, and I love AOC because I love what she represents, but nobody's gonna do another AOC. It's just not gonna happen. Jessica Cisneros just lost, right? Like, and it was a nail biter, but that's her second time running. Like, what is she gonna go for 3? I think after you run for so long, you lose an accomplishment trail. Right. And so it's one of those things where we need to stop trying to say, I just need a clipboard and a good message in my heart and I can win an election. No, you need relationships. You need a lot of them, and you need an ability to raise money because we live in a capitalist system. And if you want to win in a capitalist system, you have to play capitalist politics. God,
It's
I'm so
true.
doomer pilled.
No, it's true. I think
but it's true though.
I think the biggest thing in stepping forward, you brought up national politics, not me. So there we go. So
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
like what a lot of the Democratic Party is older, right? And I think that exactly what you're talking about, like there's going to be a big changing of the guard coming soon. And I think that it behooves us to get more people involved and get skilled. Like, I love how you put that. And I think that we need, I don't know, it's just really frustrating to me. I'm going to say something very controversial maybe, but I think Nancy Pelosi is an amazing House leader. Like, she gets everything passed in the House. It's pretty incredible. You know,
I was about to say how terrible she was just now.
Really? Because
okay, so maybe I shouldn't say this.
Well, can I make my argument first and then
yeah, go ahead.
So I think that she gets a lot of the things passed at the House level. Maybe it dies in the Senate, but like the national assault weapons ban, codifying Roe, the public option, the health care bill in 2008 that it was passed. It was killed by Lieberman in the Senate, but she got it passed in the House. You know, and I think that like, we need people, what we need to get is someone that can like tutor or something, like the next step of Nancy Pelosi, where it's like maybe she doesn't have like a husband that's trading stocks and the insider trading and all that kind of problems. But I feel like she's a good whip. You know, she whips her party together really well and gets a lot of things passed.
I'm about to demystify her.
Okay, go for it.
So first I'm gonna go with the Biden line because I think I'm supposed to do that. So Biden didn't want her to go to Taiwan, right? Like that was a big deal, right? Huge deal. She kind of just went over there on a whim. And me, I felt like that was a complete like condemnation of her entire career, that she decided just to, on a whim, go to Taiwan and stir up all this international problems when we were fighting for abortion rights, trans rights, and all of these things. But you chose to go to Taiwan, which is also the #1 silicone conducting factory in the world, which her husband just invested massively in.
That.
Yeah, exactly. And when there's a point when you become the evil that you were fighting against, and I think that's what happened. And I'm gonna say, you know why Nancy Pelosi's a good whip? Do you know why people just say, "Oh yes, Nancy, yes, Nancy"?
It's because she has no soul and is able to do the pennant stare from Ghost Rider.
Nope. Nope. It's even more. She raises millions and millions and millions of dollars for the representatives. They don't have to raise a lot of money. All they have to do is just say, "Hey, Nancy, I'm having a fundraiser." She's put on a list, and boom, every one of them get full campaign war chest. You get on Nancy's good side, you get those war chest funds because she has been the leader of the party for so long, and she has all the purse strings. It is a matter of political survival to support Nancy Pelosi if you've done it before. That's why AOC even touts the Nancy Pelosi. It's not because Nancy Pelosi is this great orator and great leader. It's because she literally holds the purse strings over people's head and says, "Hey, do you want somebody to run hard against you?" Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it really is like that. Now, I guess there is a school of thought that's saying, "Hey, that's actually a really great whip." But it's like, in a sense, though, there is a point where it doesn't become an intellectual conversation, and it is just do as I say. So I'm going to say, my dream position is whip. My dream position is to actually be majority whip in Congress. I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. Who knows? Maybe. I hope so.
I'd vote for you.
Thank you. But basically, what I want to do is actually have intellectual conversations with people and actually have them weigh the options outside of me saying, "Hey, I'll raise you a bunch of money so you'll vote for me," right? For me, I just don't like that type of leadership. I think that you lose a lot of your credibility, and I think that you lose your ability to be discerning. Like, I want somebody to say, "Hey, Josie, I think you're fucked up and wrong." Right? And I'm like, "Okay, tell me why." Right? Like I want that conversation. I don't want, "Oh, well, guess who's destroyed?" You know what I mean? Like that's not the level of leadership that I like. And in talking about getting a younger generation, I don't believe, like, you'll never see me sit in Congress for more than 20 years. You never will. Not even in leadership. Like even if I was in leadership, I still probably wouldn't give it up. I say probably because I don't know what circumstances are, but honestly, my secession plan will be out in 20 years. That's going to be my plan. That's what I want to do. That's my goal, right? Because I want people to generationally change, because like I said, after 20 years, Josie might not be so based anymore. I might suck. Who knows?
Well, even
right?
Pelosi and Biden would say that they're not at the peak of their lives. I mean, come on, right? That's what's so frustrating to me. Yeah. It's like, man, like, don't these people have families? Like, don't they want to retire? Like, I don't think my hypothesis is that they really don't. They spend so much time in DC, they don't really have a connection with their families, and they don't really care. You know, it's just kind of a weird. Yeah. I don't know why they stick around so much. It's very odd.
It's power. I'm going to tell you right now, it's power. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think there's something that I would say is a contributing factor. Sorry, I'm monopolizing so much conversation, everybody. It's just I know about this topic very intimately. But basically, the amount of power and energy that it takes to get into power and how easy it is to keep it is a very big incentive on why people stay in office. Right? Because it's so hard to get there that once you're finally there, it's like, "Oh, I'm just doing such a great job. Everybody just keeps on reelecting me. I must be so great all the time." It's just this positive affirmation all the time. And people just love it. They get addicted to it. They like going to speak, and they like going to conversations. They like being the special guest of honor at every dinner table. That shit is fun. It's like 2% of the job, but it is. It's fun. And so so I can understand why somebody would be very comfy in that limo all the time. But it's definitely something that people need to watch out for, because that's corrupting, right? It's super corrupting, and if people don't know, they become the enemy.
And Greg, I would like to say, as a counterpoint to don't these people have families? You know, don't these people have you considered this counterpoint? You got a family? Fuck them, huh? Like that's the that like for you to want to spend your entire life up in DC, I'm sorry, like you gotta want power at that point, because it can't be the money. If it's the security of a job, like then we got to go into insider trading. We got to get into they sold stocks and didn't tell anybody. We're still not. I'm still not over that. Like I'm still not over that.
Same.
The only family Nancy Pelosi cares about is her husband, and so long as those checks clear, he's staying around.
As long as the check's clear and the bar card is stocked.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Nancy Pelosi's probably fixing to be a billionaire soon.
yeah, she's. I mean,
her family.
I think that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like shady stock investments that are just insane. I don't think that like investing in Nvidia was like the biggest like secret, you know. I mean, it makes sense, but that when they sold and stuff is pretty crazy based off of that chip spill.
Well, I mean, it was right before the chip spill.
Yeah.
That's what makes it sussy sus.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a huge conflict of interest, right? I mean, she has the Google and Microsoft stock, so why would she ever bring anything through the committee that would make it so that they're going to break those companies up, which they should obviously, do.
I mean, in her words, like, we're in a capitalist economy. So
yeah,
we should be able to do it.
I mean, just have it in a trust, a blind trust. I mean, didn't we go through this with Trump? Like, you just put all your money in the blind trust and you just get 8 to 10% every year through indexes. I don't understand. Anyway,
second verse, same as the first.
Exactly.
I mean, for example, Dianne Feinstein has been forgetting the name of staffers for over a year now.
Oh, she's bad.
Like I'm actually kind of dating a senior staffer in Congress right now. But anyways, and they've been telling me some nice tea. But basically, like talking about some of the things that are happening right now, it's like unbelievable stuff. Like things that it's like, because politics is all gossip. So here in DC, it's all gossip and drama. That's probably why I like it here.
You can't tell me that Bill Cassidy from Louisiana doesn't have dementia. There's no shot.
Oh, right, absolutely, right, and they get protected. And people will continue to vote for them over and over as long as they can sign their name and say that they're running for re-election. It's all it takes.
Yeah. Is this the sign up for the bingo? Yeah.
Sure,
why not?
Tapioca pudding.
Yeah.
I guess like so my final question is like how do we, like, I'm a firm believer. I mean, obviously over the first past the post. I mean, I don't think that there is a viable alternative to the Democratic Party at the national level. I think at the local level, there's a great chances for that, and people should direct their energy towards that, and if they want to. But at the national level, I don't think that it's possible. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think at the local level, as long as you do primaries, you're fine.
Yeah.
And just be the Democrat. Like that's what happens. Like people don't understand. Like, you run a primary and you actually go knocking door to door, and you go and you win a race with like 20 volunteers that go out and hustle. Like, and you go and you do that, and it's like all of a sudden you win. Guess what the Democratic Party does? They endorse you. Right? So it's not hard to win the Democratic Party endorsement. I mean, in theory, it's not.
I think the problem is that you're inheriting that baggage, and I think that that's why a lot of people that are like more radical or want more revolutionary change, they don't want to have that like tag of it. And then on top of that, you have places in I mean, states and some counties of some states. I mean, the Democratic D next to your name is toxic. You're never going to be able to win anything.
Yeah. At this point, I think anybody who thinks that, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm about to say something mean. Not really. It's a metaphor. I only speak cryptically in metaphors.
I'm just speaking from pain.
Understood.
It's not a place of actual like prediction. I've just been hurt so many times.
I've been hurt too. We have that collective trauma for sure. Darn. Okay, so A person who says they don't want to play in the Democratic Party politics or Republican Party politics is basically saying, I'm going to start a new league of the NFL. It's like
It's a great way
saying,
to put it.
I'm going to go. It's like, you know what? Screw the NFL. The NFL, they can't do it. I'm going to create my own sports league and everybody's going to watch. Everybody's going to watch my freaking backyard freaking players. You're going to have to donate. We don't have any money for some good balls and uniforms, but you know what?
We got
We're
nothing.
going to go and have some fun out there.
I can't believe you're calling out Andrew Yang and Jimmy Dore like this.
Thank
you.
Finally.
I am. Because they're essentially doing that. They're trying to go and play NFL when they're not even an NFL franchise at this point, right? It's like, what are you doing? They're not going to let you in the club.
Andrew Yang's trying so hard on Twitter. He's trying so hard. So hard.
It is kind of weird because like I think that the Americans would actually like the parliamentary system a lot better. You know, it's so ironic that we kind of like, because of our past, we kind of went with this representative democracy. But in my opinion, you'd probably like like a percentage delegation a lot more.
Yeah. And that can't go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I like the UK parliamentary actual physical setup. Like I want to see representatives shoulder to shoulder, butt to nut, like right next to each other, screaming 10 feet away from each other. I want them to be in proximity.
You want the blood sports, Gremlo?
I found out the other day they have a stick. They have a magic stick, and if the magic stick is not in place, then laws can't pass.
That is correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like, because that's so strange too. The first thing I brought up after I was done was like, we need to talk about third parties and how they don't fucking. It's like, I want to ground this conversation just really quickly because I want people to like really get the message here. Thinking about or even having a conversation on third parties has to have the understanding that all protected party or all peoples in a nation are protected, because you're asking, when you talk about a third party, you're asking about a very weak branch or offshoot of politics that will then be responsible for what? Passing all the laws about trans people, abolishing like prison slavery. Like, you really are putting the cards in a group of people's hands who don't have the infrastructure, like,
and experience.
But like, let me even make it. Let me even go even further into the ground. Now we digging under. Like, Keffels got swatted. The method to which it happened is acceptable by the state. Like, it has to be, or else it wouldn't have happened. You want to put people in charge of that who you don't know. Like, you ever see Republicans and Democrats vote on things? You want to throw a third person in there with like a split decisional one vote and like hope that like one party fall in line, and like, what are you hoping for? So until like there's actual roots in the ground, and I mean you gotta go deep. Like, if you're gonna try a third party, all protected peoples must be protected. You must have like a solution to the land back conversation. You must have a solution to, like, not even trying to be funny, but poverty and food scarcity. You start a war, we're fucked, because you literally like kick the other two parties out, and you're still doing it. Like,
yeah, and I think what you're saying is absolutely right, and I look at it this way. You know how much machinery, not machinery, but like, metaphorical machinery it takes to get 89 million votes? Like, how many committees, how many volunteers, how many poll workers, how many like people organizing, all of that infrastructure, all with a D on it, right? And then you have all of that infrastructure with the R on it, right? And you're gonna come in here and just like, boop, you're gonna say, yay, we got in, we got like 100,000 votes. And it was like, Democratic Party just got like fucking all of them, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you put it in comparison, and I do have a little hopium here, and I don't know, I'm speaking in analogies today, so I'm gonna keep going. Like, we need to get money out of politics before we can even have a conversation about third party politics, because it's just like, I look at it like right now. You have, where you have like the tarp on like a garden, like the black tarp, and like nothing can grow in the black tarp because like the black tarp defends between the ground. Well, that's what it is right now. Politics is a black tarp with two branches coming out of it that all get all the nutrients, get all the sunlight. It doesn't have to compete with any other organisms because there's literally a block for seeds to be able to get root, because I like the root analogy, right? And it is impossible for anybody to take root and actually compete against these other giant plants, because it's physically impossible for the seedlings to even catch root because of money and politics. And until we get that out, and like a local person, like a public election system where everybody gets the same equal honeypot and it's just the best campaign wins. Could you imagine, like, if every city council candidate had like $1 million and they can just go at it? That's it, no more. Or $500,000, they can just go at it. Right, and they don't get a penny more, not a penny less. They go at it. Best message wins.
You're talking about publicly financed campaign pools.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shorter election season would be nice too. It's like goes on too long.
Well, that if you had a limited money pool, then it would have to be a limited campaign season.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you have an unlimited money pit, you can start the campaign cycle 4 years before the 2-year election if you want, which I know people who've done. Right? Like people literally raising money for a 2024 election when the other person's still in office. Like, it's legal in some places to do that type of stuff, right? Just building up a war chest for 4 years, and then they run an election during that whole period of time. Like, and it's garbage, and it doesn't, and it's one of those things that if we limited the amount of politics, it would naturally limit the people who are in it for the money. It's like, why would you get in politics if there's not a lot of money in it, right? Like, why, if I can't rub elbows with the CEO to give me all that money for my campaign, then what's the point? I'm just going to go and work for the CEO, or I'm just going to go do a business where I can. Right. And that would be a really cleansing point. And then, like I said, the election cycles would get naturally shorter, because if you only have like $250,000 and you only need to spend that $250,000 right before the election when people are paying attention. Right. So that's one of the big things. But you got to take over that institution if you want to take money out of politics, because you got people like Nancy Pelosi in there that make a living in leadership based on money in politics, where she can literally just turn on an infinite money flow into campaigns. So if you were to take that ability from her, well, is she going to be that persuasive after that?
And this brings me back to my same damn point every time. It is always about the Sims, yo. The money glitch
guns
really do train you to understand that this shit is not like malleable. Like, this is not like yo, people create custom content for free. Sometimes you gotta, buy into the Patreon. Sometimes you gotta buy into the, the little store. But like $5 for some custom content, and you getting a bunch of shirts for everybody in your community. Why are we struggling for money right now? And you want to tell me that people who also can have you thought I wasn't going to bring it back here, state-sanctioned violence against them? You think the whole narrative, the whole declaration about these people and all of the evils of their lifestyle, you don't think that's another? Like, I came in here and I immediately said, like, when do you feel that you're most comfortable? Like, it definitely sure ain't on the national stage talking about how we all need health care while you sitting there throwing tomatoes talking about, get back, you abomination. Like, we used to burn women at the stake because we thought they was witches, bro. Like, y'all, I feel like if we want to go in a direction, like, if you really want a third party to succeed, you got to do, and I've always advocated for this, but it's impossible to pull off, just like a general strike is at the moment. You got to go for a siege. You got to set up candidates in all 50 states and unify them in like the loudest. Everybody's talking about. Hassan is talking about. XQC, Tommy Innit talking about him. You got Jugmeat talking about him. You got every politician. What is this wave?
I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna say that's a terrible idea. I have seen the dangers of candidates running all at once. Like when I ran as a congressional candidate, there was 465 other candidates that were running too, right? That were like progressive establishment people that were pushing back. And I can tell you about 2/3 of those people quit politics afterwards because they saw that they had the right message and nobody supported them. And it is one of the biggest motivation killers when you run a campaign and not one person pays one attention to it. It's like, why am I going to get in politics if you do that, right? I think that it should be in phases. I think we should get a group of people in and try to get it where you got all of the masses of people, and then start winning pockets like the DSA's done in a lot of places.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
And you'll start mounting power, but that's why that's Paradigm. I'm gonna catch you here. Okay, you think I wasn't gonna ignore it? I just said we have to think in 10 to 20 year arcs. And all office strategy is a 2-year plan. And we can't do that. Now we can do an all office strategy in 10 years. We can have somebody run for office in every place that we want in 10 years, but we can't do it right away. Because I think it's going to demotivate people, and guess what? People need to volunteer too. Not all of us can run for office. Like that's just gnarly.
But I agree with what Paradigm's saying too. I mean,
I agree with what Josie's saying.
And but Josie, I think like so something I love that you're talking about in time frames here, and I think that's so true. And one of my frustrations has been, I'm a huge believer in democracy. That's like my core fundamental political ideal, but I can't grasp this with like protesting. Like I think that it would have to protests are the most effective if they're on like these huge national strike, something like that, like 100 million people coming together. I don't think that basically like the local like strikes and stuff, I think that's like looking at like the weekend time scale. And I think that it would be a lot better for people to get more involved with volunteering, 10 hours over a month or 10 hours over a couple months, getting involved, getting some experience, getting skilled, rather than going out for one weekend every couple of years and feeling like that there's going to be any change because of that.
Did you catch any of the Chris Smalls interview that Hassan did recently?
No. I don't know who that is.
Watch the labor space in the next year and a half.
Okay.
So, okay. I will say this. We are never going to get away from the massive public outcries that people do. And it's our job as organizers to go to those rallies with clipboards, to go and ask 10 people to sign that clipboard and get one out of every 10 that you ask. I've come out of rallies, like spontaneous rallies on certain things. I'd literally come out with 200 signatures, not signatures, but 200 people's information. Go call through that list and invite them to the Progressive Democratic Club. About 50 to 60 would show up. And that level of engagement is huge. And it's extremely important for organizers to be organized when these actions happen, to go and funnel people in. It's the law of averages, right? 10,000 people show up to an action. Well, if you have good organizers, you can probably capture about 1% of those people in some way. You can then use that information to then put it into a funnel, and you put them into the donor pile, the volunteer pile, or the voter pile. And then you sort it all out. And then from there, you may, from a public action or a protest where you had about 10,000 people show up, but you found about 50 hard workers out of that 1,000, you can win an entire election with that many people. Right? If they're going door to door, going weekly, working and actually doing a coordinated strategy with real organizing chops, right? Like this has to be like really organized. Like people have to have doors with voters in them, right? Like that's what you got to do to do that. And that's where our problem is that we have a massive deficit. And it comes back again, what we were talking about, skilled organizers. We need to have those skilled organizers that can put those people who are coming to a protest for the first time to say, hey, this person looks like they know what they're doing. Can I get involved with you? That's all it takes. And you got a political activist for a lifetime after that.
I agree. I think, I was so, I guess my larger question is like, what do you think is like the current state and the future of kind of like people that want to make progress on changes and stuff on these issues? Because I mean, I worked with the Bernie campaign. I was a victory captain and stuff like that, and I just felt like
that my partner was the field director for San Diego County for 2020. Right?
I probably joined their Zoom call or whatever in order to. They probably trained me. So.
Yeah. She trained a lot of people.
So I guess I was just a little, I don't know. I was just kind of sad. Like I felt like 2016 Bernie, there was so much hope and optimism, and I felt like it was going. And I felt like partially probably because of the pandemic too. Like people just weren't like responding to my calls for action and that kind of stuff. Getting people in and doing these phone banking and that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess how do you see the current landscape for right now for like organizing progressive change?
We need more people, and a lot of it is the people that you said walked away. I'm going to talk about the 2016 convention that you ran for, so I apologize. But I was there with the California delegation, and I was there with all the national Bernie delegates, and it was a big deal. It was such a big deal that when Barack Obama, we were protesting, we were coordinated, we had like signal messages like sending out, like we were like organized. It was like a machine. Like the DNC didn't even know what to do. They were just like, what are we going to do about all these Bernie people in here? They're freaking making it impossible for us to just inaugurate, like just to coordinate Hillary. Like she didn't get the coordination she wanted because we were in the room, right? And so Barack Obama, when he gave his keynote for that convention, he came up and his first sentence out of his mouth was like, I just want to acknowledge all of the people and the organizers in this room because I am standing with the best political organizers in the world. And that was like, oh my gosh, like Barack Obama noticed and he said it and he acknowledged us more than Hillary Clinton did, right? But even that, still more than half of those Bernie delegates were Bernie or busters and walked away and took away all of that experience that they walked into that national convention with them. And we had to start from fucking scratch. We raised over $1.5 million as a national Bernie delegation to get every Bernie delegate there, regardless of their income status. And it was a powerful thing that we did. And half of them walked away and they took all that experience, all those networks, all those connections, all those voters and all those people, and they never came back. And it was one of the most devastating blows to our movement by far, was people who just got disillusioned after one try. And it's like, you fucking got here. Like, and I was somebody who worked in politics since 2012. So when I saw all of us in the space, I was like, oh my gosh, this is history. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, it was like one of the most amazing things ever. I was like, no, there was nothing before. This is the most amazing thing ever. And I was like so jazzed. And then everybody like gets one hint of defeat for like one time ever in their entire political career. They freaking literally were in the space for 6 goddamn months or a year. And then they're like, fuck this. And they just like walk out. I'm like, no, you're supposed to vote for us. Like it was a complete disaster. And we're still dealing with that power vacuum. We're still dealing with that dearth of organizers, because people are just like, oh, I did the whole Bernie thing once. I was Bernie or bust. Fuck politics. You'll never get it. It was rigged. Hillary always won, right? And it's just like, shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you were in the room when Barack Obama said you were one of the best organizers in the goddamn world, and now you're just like, fuck it, politics is shit. I was like, you got the fucking former president, sitting president of the United States to fucking call you one of the best organizers in the world, and you're just saying, fuck it doesn't work.
I know, and it's so frustrating too. It's because it's like, did they listen to what Bernie was saying? I mean, not me, us. No. That was the whole point. Yeah. That was the whole point. Yeah. It's not about him actually becoming president. The Bernie campaign, it was very different in that. It's like, that was he was talking about, the millions of people all across the country coming together. Yeah. It's like, come on, like
never underestimate burnout, man.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's true. But that's because it's that pile of goods thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that work real hard for this 4 years or 2 years to get this person elected, and then all of a sudden people like lost their jobs because they wanted to sit over an overpass and hold up a sign, right? Like straight up. And those people, like when they got so disillusioned, they were like, I'm done. I quit. It's like this was always rigged. And I was like, no, it wasn't though.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it was maybe a little in a few places, and I'll give it that. But
he did get less votes. It's like he did.
Yeah, but it's like
You had an
it's
open
like
socialist
don't give
within
up.
spitting distance of the presidency. Like,
I know, and we and everybody just gave up and took their balls too. They just took their balls and went home. You know, it's just like, no, we need those. Like, we need to play the game.
Yeah, we have to play.
Like,
we have to play the game. It's true.
Like, and it's like, and that means losing a couple. Like, people are so fragile. It's just like, oh, my candidate lost. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did you not win the presidency in the largest country, most powerful country in the world? Not the largest, but the most one of the most powerful. You know, and it's like, come on. Like, people are so short-sighted.
I think those people would be disillusioned.
We're still dealing with that.
They'd be disillusioned anyway, right? Because Bernie would have come in not as a king, right? He would have had all the stipulations and all the Senate and the House, even if he won in a majority. You know, it's not going to get everything passed. So I feel like the same people might have been burnt out that, and then like we even got him in as a president.
That would have been okay though. That would have been okay because everybody would have been like, oh, disillusioned, but then all of a sudden Bernie, the sitting president, would start endorsing candidates across the country, and then all of a sudden Bernie candidates are winning across the country because he set such an establishment with an administration, and then people would be like, oh, it's not Bernie now, only it's now these stupid Congress people that are in our way. Let's all vote for them because Bernie said that, right? And it would have been fine, and that's what leadership is. And
Exactly.
that's the problem, is that we've been flailing without leadership. And now, because we don't have a leader,
it's so
everybody
true.
quits.
The Democratic Party in the last 20 years have completely abandoned state and local houses. That's these state reps. I mean, and the senates and the governors. I mean, these are really things that matter in the long run. Look at the gerrymandering cases. Look at all the. It's just it has cascading impacts. I feel like.
Well, I mean, I'm a little more cynical when it comes to party politics. In my view, the Democratic Party, by and large, operates as controlled opposition.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's just
so my dog and my partner are both looking at me because the dog needs to go out, and I do have to give a big presentation tomorrow. So I do have to actually probably try to get some sleep since I was traveling all day. I am very exhausted, and I really appreciate this conversation. It's a shame that you do this every Thursday because I am busy every Thursday, probably until October. But I would be happy if I ever have an opportunity to come back. I would be happy to. I'm also not going to be going to TwitchCon after all, because of the fact that they're not doing any mask requirements or vaccine requirements. TwitchCon is a month. Yeah, TwitchCon is literally a month before my bottom surgery, and I cannot afford to get sick.
Yeah.
So it's best that I'm gonna have to miss it. So I'm sad because I know I probably would have saw a lot of you there. So I just wanted to let you know.
I might be the only one in the group that's going to TwitchCon. I don't know, Greg, are you going? That's your home turf.
Probably not. I mean, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not big into Twitch, so.
Okay.
On Twitch or anything.
Well, all right. Well, let me give myself an outro if you don't mind. So hello everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I do stream on Twitch. I know that I've been on a little bit of a hiatus, but it's for good reason. I am doing the professional grass touching that I do, so I will be back soon. I'm coming back sporadically every now and then. You can find me at Josie Rose C with the letter C at twitch.tv. And you can also join my Discord, especially if you're a queer, trans person. Also, everybody's welcome, allies and all. Can go to the lovenest. Wait. Oh my gosh, I forgot the Discord. How do you do Discord? Discord. It's the Love Nest. All right, Discord. And so that's a good place. We have a really cozy community there that is very affirming, and we help a lot of folks dealing with a lot of things there. And it's a good way to keep track with what I'm doing. I give a lot of personal announcements about things that I'm up to, so it's a great place to be. So I really appreciate all this time with all of you.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate your presence and your organizing wisdom, which really, like you said, is the aggregate of years of just working very hard at it. I will also say, I think the rest of the regulars on the panel would agree, but the door is always open for you. We can loop you into the ministry Discord so you can hop on the panels depending on topic or interest or what have you, because we do have a lot of actual academics here as guests, so it's an opportunity for you to kind of
if you need more academics, I can help you with that too. I know a ton of people.
Yes.
Any given topic. My job was part of my job when we were getting the review of the survey was getting over 100 and hundreds of subject matter experts on almost every field of human life in the United States as far as policy. So I know quite a few people. I know a lot of trans researchers, much smarter than I am when it comes to like the academics, that could just speak volumes. I think a good guest that we can I can maybe talk in the coming would be Dr. Jack Turbin. Dr. Jack Turbin is the person that was the principal investigator for the Stanford study that said that there was a 222% drop in mental health issues for people who started transition in adolescence. Jack Turbin's also been one that's been very actively against like a lot of detransitioner narratives. I would say that Jack is probably one of the experts on detransition narratives. Really cool person, and that's just like one of many people that I know that I think would be very interested just chit-chatting with all of you. Really cool people that I know. So
absolutely. As soon as you said the Stanford study, my eyes lit up and I was like, I recognize that study. I'm a fucking nerd. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, and I know tons of researchers at the Williams Institute, like would be happy just to come on and be like, hi. So that's good. And
screaming small school child. I'm loving this right now. Yeah.
We were just talking about like guest scheduling and stuff before the stream. So like serendipitous to say the least.
Yeah, let me know. I know a lot of really awesome academics that would be happy to just chit chat. They're not like online at all though, so just be ready. They're just going to be just really
actually kind of what we want, because we're one of our missions is kind of like poke and prod at the worldviews of grass touching academics to be like, hey, like where are you at, and can we like pull you to the left a little bit. So we like actually talking to those folks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely know the people who would be good at it, and definitely the people who would be super boring and not make any sense, but we could get some of them on too.
Thank you, Josie.
Thank you, Josie.
Yeah, thanks.
Much love, everybody. Bye-bye.
See ya. All right, folks. I think we can probably call it there because we're hitting the 3+ hour mark. We've been at it for 3 whole ass hours.
I'm so fucking tired, man.
Oh, y'all tired? I'm ready to go for another 4 or 5 hours. What's up with y'all?
You degen hour streamers are on something else.
I'm definitely going to. Like, I was watching Cody. I think we got, how far did we get in before I inquired about ministry? 4 minutes and 36 seconds into a 52-minute video. I was like, yo, is ministry happening? What are they talking about? I can do that.
So speaking of that, I do have 2 government agencies to fucking stunlock over, so we should probably just wrap it here because like you said, Amber, you're tired. Graham, you've been on the fucking massive partner push. You've certainly put in a lot of hours on this platform today, so let's go ahead and go around the horn doing shout outs. Greg, you're the first on my screen, so have at it.
Oh no. My name is Greg. I have a YouTube channel. It's called The Peer Review, and you can get there by going to thepeer.review. My latest video is my opinion and analysis on the new climate bill that just passed. So if you're interested, a lot of people are talking about it, but they're not actually talking about what's in it. So I go through it and give my opinion, and I think it's a really good video. I'm pretty proud of it. So check it out.
Awesome. Graham, you know the drill.
I'm Gremlo. You can find me at twitch.tv/JosieRosieC. And live every day, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. News, politics, reacts. Today was kind of a slow day because we had a bunch of stuff that we were waiting on. Merrick Garland kind of cucked us at the end of the stream. But back at it again tomorrow.
Yeah, you've got nuclear documents to talk about tomorrow, so I think
I'm bricked up for it.
Yeah, you're going to make up for it on the back end, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Amber, you're up next.
Oh.
I am DN Amber. The DN stands for D's fucking nuts. I really try hard to be live every Monday and Friday, but so I will be live tomorrow. We're gonna play the Dead by Daylight dating sim, Hooked on You. So I'm excited to finally find a killer that will be nice and cuddle with me instead of try to put me on a meat hook. And I'm gonna dress up. It's gonna be a good time.
Oh God,
I'm going on
you're not
dates.
You're
I have
not
to
on
look. I
TikTok,
have to look
so
cute.
you're not aware of the
I'm on TikTok.
Dead by Daylight kinks.
I'm on TikTok.
Oh, you are?
Oh,
I
well,
thought you said-
I've seen some thirst
Okay.
traps of Dead by Daylight and Overwatch.
Well, Overwatch.
I saw
get it,
one
but,
of
like,
Roadhog, dude. A thirst trap of Roadhog.
Emphasis on hog, I'm sure.
TikTok found out I liked Overwatch and decided to send me that. So
You like this? All the smut right now.
it's just like some dude like kicking his phone over and then like standing over it and like doing the Roadhog breathing, like the.
Oh,
He's
God.
like got the whole cosplay on. Anyway, I'm Deanne Amber. Come watch tomorrow.
We'll leave all of you with that thought of a very suggestive innuendo in TikTok. All right, Marquise, wrap it up. You got this.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is your host with the most. It's the guy that doesn't have catchphrases anymore. Hi, I'm the Paradigm Shift. You might have heard of me around in some type of circles or whatever. I'm a teacher, a guy who likes to teach about things. I'm also a guy who likes to talk about politics, news, and set up an entire network of ideas that hopefully grows us to a better place on this earth. I'm one of the last people that can make you feel on this platform. I'm surrounded by a bunch of people who can also do the same. Please do me a favor before I shout out my name. Please give them some love. I need to see at least one follow per person. That's the goal that we set, and one more fuck, because that all it takes is the one. If you're interested in anything of the energy of which I'm bringing to this panel or anything about season 3, what the hell is season 3? We just launched it. You should come to twitch.tv/the_paradigm_shift to find out what the hell is going on. We dropped a lot of things today, and I hope you're interested in them. But if not, please do me a favor and find a community that makes you feel appreciated. And if it's one of them weird ones like Chud Logics, I guess seek help.
Paradigm, did you see the Lightyear movie? Lightyear? Did you see it? Did you see it?
Can you hear him? Is he muted?
No, what? Paradigm, I'm talking. Did you see the movie Lightyear?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh my God! You said the thing, and I heard his name, so I'm waiting for him to respond. Like, why you keep
We
pausing?
just went completely silent for like
Dead air.
10 seconds.
No, dude, I
haven't seen it yet.
Okay. So, dude, I watched it, my first kids movie ever, with my actual kids in the theater because, the pandemic and stuff. We're sitting there watching it. The ending of the movie is, the answer is gun. Dude, Lightyear comes up strapped, dude. He comes in just...
No.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
The other day, what's that scene? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
It's at the very end of the movie when they're taking over like the command posts and stuff. Everyone just gets strapped, and him and his teammate just go out and shoot and stuff. And you're like, this is a kids movie. Why is it?
Did we watch the same movie?
Yeah, dude. The lasers. They don't have guns. They don't have actual guns. It's like light.
Gun, but I got
like lasers.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I blacked out for the last half. I don't remember that.
It was all the forced feminization in the movie. It was such a brain.
Yeah, I was too distracted by how gay it was making me.
It's so bad.
I've seen The Big Lebowski like 3 times, but I don't remember it. If that makes you feel,
dude,
any better.
even the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, bro. The Beast Morphers, they go through all their whole transitions. They're like martial artists, and then they transition, and then all of a sudden, when they transition, they have just guns. Everyone has guns, and they go boop, 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 boop.
Yeah. Somebody, I forgot who said that. I feel like they was like, yo, I was watching, I think even Gremlo stream or something, and they were like, yo, we were watching that. You wouldn't believe it. It turns into gun.
I was like, what, dude? How is this? Everything, dude. Ever since you said that, I told my wife too, and we're just like, every answer is guns. Every answer.
Like,
It's nuts, dude. Even kids' movies. It's so.
I really liked Lightyear. I remember enjoying
I liked it too.
Got to start them young, brother.
That's right.
Alrighty, everyone.
is that we're calling it?
That's
Yeah,
it.
we're calling it.
All
So
right,
thank
everyone.
you all for your time. Always appreciate it, even for the post-outro banter. Take it easy, everybody.
Later, everybody.
All right, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Adios.